Okie dokie, artichoke. What's happening, everybody? What's up, friends? What's up, guys? Good to see you guys. Sean, I'm glad you didn't
Oh,
get fucking murked by the fucking CBP in Portland. Uh, I heard there was there was like just another officer involved shooting. So I'm glad that wasn't you.
well, you know more than I do, then, dude. I didn't know something just happened in Portland.
Yeah, apparently it was recent.
I heard about the one in where the other one that was on the
Minnesota.
news.
Yeah,
Minnesota,
no,
yeah.
there was just another one like down Burnside.
No way.
Yeah, and it tripped
I
me
didn't
out.
hear about that shit.
I was like, oh shit, because Burnside, one of the most famous skate parks in North America, is right there on Burnside, right at the end, under the bridge. So
Under the bridge.
Burnside holds a special place in my heart. But apparently there was another CBP shooting just this afternoon, and I was like, oh shit, I wonder if that's why Sean said he's going to be late. I'm glad it wasn't you. I hope these I hope these federal law enforcement assholes will stop terrorizing local populations and all that. But that we're not here to talk about that shit. Mikey, what are we doing here? Why are we here?
So what we're doing here is we brought Sean on so I could pop this double IPA. Give it a little taste test.
Dude, yeah. Shout out to Adam of Adam Mad. We're talking about our deepest held beliefs, our non-negotiables. Mine was that indeed nobody actually likes IPAs, and then his is that
BKS with your local brewery. You'd change your fucking tune. I swear to God. You'd be like, yes, please, can I have another?
He said that all his deepest held belief is that all candy corn was manufactured in 1947, and it's just it just gets pulled out of the trash and then put back on the shelf and recycled every single year. So
you're absolutely right, Adam.
Candy corn is so good. And also, I used to drink IPAs back when I used to drink. Does that mean I have bad taste?
No, a lot of IPAs suck, but this shit right here, double BKS. Oh yeah.
I have had like one that I liked. I think that they were just so popular and so everywhere that you had to drink them for a while. You know what I mean? That was it. It was like you'd have to drink IPAs, and I didn't want to.
Much like Friedrich Nietzsche, the IPA was overhyped.
The IPA of philosophy.
Yeah. Anyways, ladies, gentlemen,
what are we here for,
and
right?
non-specified. Yeah. What are we here for, Mikey? What are we doing this afternoon?
This is the beginning of a new series we're going to do, which is a series of exegetical readings of George Bataille's The Accursed Share, which is his theoretical masterpiece. Although I think some of you would say there's more important writings or writings you find to be more interesting. But if you want to go to the heart of Bataillean theory, you go to Accursed Share Volume 1, especially the beginning sections of it. And so we're gonna read through the whole book over, I don't know, the course of this year or 6 months, or however long it takes us. But yeah, we're gonna really try to focus in on the early chapters because they're the heart of the theory. And so we're going to kick off this new series in the new year. And I look, all three of us have an interest in Bataille, and for various reasons and for very similar reasons.
Yep.
And so this appeals to the individual dimensions of us as thinkers and also a shared collective thing. So I think this is really cool for the three of us to read this together. I don't know if there's a better text to start an exegetical series with the three of us than this one.
Yeah, I'm super down. It's a funny book because it's like it's written in a way that seems almost backwards, like someone else might have written it the other way around, where it starts out super theory heavy and then there's empirical shit later, Someone else might have chosen to write all the empirical shit in the beginning and then dump the theory at the end,
Yeah.
I think I like the theory at the beginning, and then you see its empirical, historical application.
It might be the right way, and it's going to reward coming back to it multiple times.
Yeah. It's like setting up the bowling pins and then knocking them down.
Right.
But also, that like going through the examples and seeing it played out, then when you come back to the first chapter, like you're like, oh, that makes more sense now because I actually had it fleshed out by this empirical data and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
We also say we do look, people will go, well, volume 1 always gets all the credit and the spotlight. We do plan on after we finish this, we'll probably read parts at least of volume 2 and volume 3.
Yep.
We probably won't do the whole thing cover to cover, but we will spend some time with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I think we all agree volume 1 has got some important shit.
It's
as far as subjectivity goes, politically really important, I think, for a lot of reasons.
No, I think Bataille is necessary. Like I think we have to be able to zoom out and view ourselves as part of something bigger than ourselves. And I think that's what Bataille provides. I think all these other we were talking about the Austrian school, Mikey. Was it during the teleoplexy reading? I think.
I think so.
But like even people trying to do like an update to economic thinking and stuff like that. You can't really get a grasp of what's going on unless you're willing to think the economy as something larger than the sum of its parts or whatever. And so like in a way it is giving up on this myth of the individual. Now it's not to say death of the subject, what, some of the later French guys will do after Bataille. It's a Copernican shift. It's shifting the focus from the individual rational economic actor, citizen, or whatever, and it's saying, well, hey, this global economy is actually a system. And Bataille actually goes out and says it's a cosmic system. But
dude,
it's
okay.
Yeah.
Dude, he's a thinker of the whole. That's what's important. He's connecting all these things together that other thinkers are segmenting off and being like, I'm going to be an economist. I'm going to study this. I'm going to study that. No, Bataille wants to see the whole, and that's why it's so important, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what allowed Nick to go and develop libidinal materialism and develop this view of intelligence in raw matter, and this extropy, negentropy, like all this stuff that I think is essential, and I think it's an essential part of capital, and it comes from Bataille. That's exactly it. Thirst for annihilation. And it comes from being able to say, let's zoom out and let's stop thinking about, your individual rational or irrational decisions as an individual consumer or an entrepreneur or a businessman or a peasant or a worker or whatever, and see, where do you fit in to this machine? And I think that's necessary to figuring out the world we live in, like capital.
And I think Western philosophy is maybe worse than that. That as compared to Eastern philosophy. I think Eastern philosophy tends to view the whole better, getting back to a conversation you guys did before, and Western philosophy tends to segment things off more. So Bataille is like in the West seeing the whole,
Yeah.
But anything you have to say, Mikey, to start off, or should we just get into it?
I would just say, look, obviously Bataille has influenced me through how he influenced Lacan, especially in Seminar 7. But he's always been there because, I love as much, I me, I like to put this focus on subjectivity, but I think it's important to also span out and zoom out and think about these forces that are at play that, in Deleuze's terms, act as transcendental empirical conditions of human experience, because there is no subjectivity without the human body. Now, I don't want to reduce subjectivity to the human body or the human organism. I think it is an emergent feature or remainder that isn't epiphenomenal. But I also grant this kind of chain of almost transcendental causality. So subjectivity though not reducible to it, depends on the human body. The human body, with its senses and the functioning of its brain and central nervous system, can only exist within a certain range of intensities. It's too hot or too cold. First off, the body couldn't emerge, but if you drop the temperature 250 degrees where I'm at, I'm done. There's no subjectivity. It's bye-bye. So I also have this very strong influence from Bataille, land, Deleuze, and I understand how these forces within the universe are within a certain range of intensity, the conditions of the emergence of the human body and therefore the human subjectivity. So even though I put the emphasis on subjectivity, I don't want to forget that there are transcendental empirical conditions to it. So that's where I would say Bataille has influenced me. And of course, excess, this concept of excess, how it plays not only in individual subjectivity, but in society as a whole. And, Todd McGowan wrote a book called Pure Excess. And yet at the same time, he seems to have his disagreements with Bataille. But Nance had a nice exchange with Todd in one of our videos. And I don't know, Todd seemed more sympathetic to Nance's Bataille than to maybe Bataille. But,
yeah, I think my Bataille is the truth of Bataille. But of course, it's because it's mine. But no, I think, I think Todd is seeing what Bataille is talking about. It's just Bataille didn't have the Lacanian equipment to express himself in a way that Todd would. So while I think that Todd is right, I think I can only say that because we didn't disagree.
I think it's just when Todd, when he's doing the thing with excess, he thinks it has to be thought through Hegelian dialectics, which essentially means it has to be related to the concept of negativity. And Bataille doesn't seem to have dialectical negativity in mind, and I think that's Todd's biggest gripe. But
he's just not doing that. And that's how I can say, yeah, Todd's right about that, but Bataille's doing something different. I think Bataille is describing techno-capital. He's describing the machine god. He's describing Robo Cthulhu. He just doesn't know it yet. And so it's useful.
Describing the universal superego.
Right. So it's useful to I think tarry with Bataille because it allows us to see the difference between the ultimate sublime commodity object, which is capital, which is Robo Cthulhu, which is all this stuff, and then over here this subject. I was playing around with when we were talking to Nick the other day, trying to express what we mean by negative subjectivity in a way that he would be okay with, and I was like, we're like cyborgs, man. We're like fractal appendages of the Schopenhauerian will. And it's sensational and a little bit fun and silly, but I also think that's an accurate way to try to describe what's going on, to differentiate us from the machine. So Bataille is talking about the machine. He's a sociologist or an anthropologist, whatever, or at least he thinks he is. But what happened was he discovered the machine god. So Nick Land goes on to develop the idea of the machine god. But the way the solar anus works, the way the machine deals with excess, that is the way capital deals with excess. But we're different. We are not capital. Capital is not just a one-for-one us. Like there's already a difference. But that's all getting in the weeds. So
this is all like spoiler alert, but
yeah.
Yeah.
No, the key here tonight, we're gonna start off the reading. So let's go to Bataille's own words on all this.
Let's do it. And we will skip the preface for now. We may come back to it after the fact. But I think we'll just jump right into it. Part 1, theoretical introduction, the meaning of general economy. So for a short biographical, or for a short summation of the preface, Bataille is this weird guy. He writes erotic fiction, and he's just this weird artsy-fartsy guy doing stuff. He lives through the rise of fascism and the horrors of the the World Wars, World War II, and he spends 19 or 20 years writing this book on political economy, and it was a huge diversion from his path, but also necessary. And I think having that outsider perspective is what allowed him to come up with this genuine insight into what the global economy was and is doing.
Look, because out of the three of us, we all share this interest in Bataille. I think you two have a deeper love and appreciation for him than I do, even though I have that. It's more for you guys. So I think as we move along, maybe I'll play the role sometimes of somebody asking you guys what I think somebody in the audience might want asked. And I think to start off with, the big question would be, what does Bataille even mean by general economy, opposed to how we typically use the term?
Right. Well, and you're in luck, pal. He answers that.
Right. But we should say, here's what we should to set that he means more than the economy when he's talking about general economy.
Right. For the uninitiated, bog standard traditional view of economy, that's what he titles the restricted economy. And he comes up with the general economy to describe what he really sees going on.
Which has to do with an economy that is at work. I mean, hence the word general. It's an economy that is at play in every domain of not only human society, but of nature itself. That's the general dimension of this type of economy.
Yep. So, the meaning of general economy: the dependence of the economy on the circulation of energy on the earth. When it is necessary to change an automobile tire, open an abscess, or plow a vineyard, it is easy to manage quite a limited operation. The elements on which the action is brought to bear are not completely isolated from the rest of the world, but it is possible to act on them as if they were. One can complete the operation without once needing to consider the whole, of which the tire, the abscess, or the vineyard is nevertheless an integral part. The changes brought about do not perceptibly alter the other things, nor does the ceaseless action from without have an appreciable effect on the conduct of the operation. But things are different when we consider a substantial economic activity, such as the production of automobiles in the United States, or a fortiori, when it is a question of economic activity in general. I think that's pretty clear, right?
Well, I would just add, there are things humans do that are relatively isolatable from the whole of nature, but our large-scale economic activity is not able to be restricted in the same way, even if economists have treated the economy as an isolatable system.
Yep.
So I guess that's my note in the book. So I guess what younger me was saying with writing that is highlighting this dimension of, we can't get confused by the word economy. We have to not think what we mean economy would be in an economics textbook.
Right.
And so
isn't this
what he calls,
you and I, Mikey, particularly have come up against this when talking to Marxists about our view of capital. And they always come back and they say, well, yeah, but capitalism is still just human activity. It's you could say it's reified human activity. You could say it's, the reification of reification itself. That's something we talked a bit about with Chris Catrone. But they always come back to saying, but it's still just this doubling up of human activity. And yeah, sure. But when you say that, a lot of the time these people are sneaking in this notion that things are isolated, things are isolable, things are my individual decisions as a consumer or as a worker, as a producer or whatever are my own. But it's like, no, we are determined by global capital. There are degrees of freedom, but you can only move so far. You can only move about where chess pieces on the board. We have been locked into symbolic positions by our material conditions.
And if anyone doubts that, go try and start a small business and you'll find out what you're allowed to do by the economy, Go do it. There will be roadblocks all over the place. You'll be put in your lane, if you've never tried to do it. Or you'll have some friends and those friends will just put you on their shoulders and then you'll be effortlessly lifted to the top. But it's one of the two for the most part.
Well, and that's inextricably linked to, through levels of abstraction. It's inextricably linked to the Democratic Republic of the Congo and fucking Venezuela and Argentina and fucking Norway. The economies of these places are not separate and not isolable. Like, it is this global system that interacts with each other. And we can see how we are locked in place to an extent by the economy as a whole. So it's just absurd that so many people don't see it that way or aren't willing to.
It's almost like that there's this central, like, I don't know. Is there a script that all these people are reading off of, all the Marxists that want to make the same argument? Because I've run into it too. It's just like, it's almost, they're all off the same script,
Their responses have been centrally planned.
That's one of the reasons they dislike, our what up, Unc? Chris Catrone.
Yeah.
Is because he's a Marxist that won't just do the script.
Right.
For good or bad. He and so that's one of the reasons Chris stands out.
Yep.
Among a lot of the Marxists.
But a lot of people, I mean, I'm just gonna say it. I think a lot of people are trying to read Chris's script, but they can't because they didn't write the script. They're not Chris, so they're not out there they're not out there able to do it. But there's a lot of people reading his script, and so it's like a degraded form of Catrone himself. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say it.
Sean brought the smoke tonight.
Dude. Hey, I support. I didn't say it, but I support, dude. But yeah, so that
I raised this double IPA to you, Sean. Okay, look, I just want to say, look, here's what's great about it. Because what we typically mean by economics or the economy, we mean exchanges. Let's keep it in our world, capitalism. We mean exchanges of commodities and money on the basis of people trying to fulfill basic needs or wants. But it has everything to do with commodity exchange, money exchange, transactions, stocks, Wall Street, all of this kind of stuff that we typically associate with the economy. But if we think about economics as a system of the exchanges of money and commodities, okay, cool. We certainly can do that. But what Bataille is talking about are not so much transactions, but expenditures of energy.
Yes.
That's what makes it an economy. It is a system of, it's better to say expenditures than exchanges. But these expenditures have a much broader reach. They're at the level of energy itself. And by that, he doesn't just mean libidinal energy. He means physical energy.
Yeah.
So whether it's woodpeckers that seem to just have so much energy as they're annoying the shit out of you as they peck at your house, or it's a society that has a certain surplus and that surplus itself has become a problem. So they develop religious rituals to engage in social forms of expenditure, like sacrifices. It's every type of organism is seeking to find an outlet to expend the excess energy that's circulating in it. Yep. And that is how this is an economy, right?
Bataille's thinking the whole, and capitalism and market relations, that's just a microcosm of something much, much, much bigger that encompasses the whole universe.
The only thing that Nance and I already know, the only thing we would want to say to that, of course, the universe has been expending energy long before capitalism as we know it showed up. What land gives us is the way to think how there's a weird harmony or a weird compatibility between capital and matter itself.
Hmm.
And that's this weird thing. What capital does, matter, or the expenditure of energy, has long been producing things in the universe, whether it's galaxies, whether it's organisms, right? And we can think of everything as congealments of energy, right? What capital does through its actual economics is accelerate this process of forging new connections and tapping into new potentials in matter itself. That is
Yeah.
why there's such a technological dynamism in capitalism. Technological dynamism is the production and actualization of potentials in matter by being able to put matter in new configurations, i.e., build new tech. And no system that we've seen is more reliable than at this than capital. So that's just an important connection. But your point is right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
between the production of automobiles and the general movement of the economy, the interdependence is rather clear. But the economy taken as a whole is usually studied as if it were a matter of an isolatable system of operation. Production and consumption are linked to get together, but considered jointly, it does not seem difficult to study them as one might study an elementary operation relatively independent of that which it is not.
So production and consumption it is prosumption.
Yeah, it's every time something is produced. Now, again, if you're looking at a holistic, and not to be hippy dippy, wishy wishy washy, using the word holistic, but holistic meaning like looking at the system as a whole. Every time something is produced, it has to go somewhere. So it's produced and it's consumed, and they're two necessary parts of the equation, considering the overall cohesion or metastability of the object of study. And when the object of study is the general economy, again, that's what Bataille is saying. He's saying it is a global system. It's not just let me get my pancakes, let me get my cell phone, let me get my bike. That's what we see as part of this global process that's always there, that's always happening.
But we can't see the forest because of the trees, right?
There we
It's
go.
this thing, especially with capitalism. Look, I think this threefold distinction is useful. I use it. I think we all do. Um, the region or sphere of production, region or sphere of distribution, which he doesn't say here, but I'll say it, he should, and then consumption. But the point is, yeah, you can abstract them in the sense of I want to study distribution networks. Sure. But if you get lost in that too much, you fail to see the whole or the general, which is like it's completely plugged into production and consumption. You're distributing from production to consumption, and the whole reason you produce more is because we have consumed what we have. It's just it is a circuitry of the whole, which I would just like to say, Nick Land has said to us that Marx is the greatest cybernetician
Yeah.
that ever lived. And it's because Marx truly was thinking
Yep.
the cybernetics, the system of communication, meaning processing of data, you know, relay system, so to speak. And Marx was thinking it in every side of it to understand the whole. And so this is why someone like Land, who is so big on thinking about capitalism and thinking about the raw potentials of matter, Bataille and Marx are two of his key thinkers.
And interestingly, this is what I think a lot of Marxists might object to about Bataille, because Bataille takes it a step further than Marx. So, like, Marx is thinking about the whole of the economy, and the Bataille is like, okay. And to get back to the point you made just a minute ago, Mikey, is that like Bataille is like abstracting further and going like, okay, this is the way I make sense of it, is that like if capitalism works, it works on the basis of how it fits into the energetic economy. You know, it makes great use of the energy.
Yep.
Otherwise, it wouldn't work. It would be physically impossible for it to work unless it was really good at exploiting and making use of the much larger system in which it exists. And once you break it down like that, it's completely obvious. But when we think about things like in our completely instrumentalized little paths, where like I am this part of the function and I must perform this function well, it becomes impossible to just abstract from that and see the whole.
Well, especially with this type of economy commanding us to enjoy, have access, have as much as you can, consume as much as you can. Older societies didn't do that, except in very exceptional moments like a festival or a sacrifice. They had their moments, and Bataille knows that. He talks about this. But for capitalism, the festival never ends.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think Bataille is the necessary intermediary or intermediate step between Marx and Land. And I think Marx is right. I also think Land is right. And I also think Bataille is right. And like it is this continued tradition of, I think, what Marx started by way of Bataille. We see it in Nick now. And I don't think he ever left the path of this type of systems thinking. Like really trying to think of the system and the meta system and what all is going on. Now, we can disagree over his final summation or whatever. Like we can disagree about where we want to end up. Yeah. But no, like his investigation of capital as this global machine is, I think, appropriate and accurate. And it does go all the way back to Marx. And probably Marxist. Yeah, more Marxist than most Marxists.
Sean, you should have seen our reaction when Nick said to us, Marx is a greater cybernetician than Norbert Wiener.
Yeah, dude.
I heard it. I don't think I was watching, but I was listening at work. I think I heard the silence, the pause. I think that was palpable. So.
And I just want to say, okay, for anybody, who checks us out because you got here through Land and maybe you're on the reactionary side, hi. You're allowed to watch our videos. Hi. I think it's important. Like your guy, who's also our guy. Hey, what's up, Mark?
Hi, everybody.
How's it going?
Going good. Look at your fucking books. Damn.
Yeah, the library.
He thinks I have a lot.
I love when we get a Mark cameo.
Yeah.
There's Mark's cameos and there's Mark cameos.
Yeah, right. People are going to go, what? Wait, what?
Oh, yeah. Sorry if you're listening.
He doesn't look like Karl Marx.
Little did they know.
Yeah.
Mark just tried to get on Traders today. He's on a mission because they did a casting call for that.
Shout out, dude. Yeah. I love that shit. Dude, I hope he gets it, man.
Yeah, it'd be pretty cool. Anyway, sorry.
Okay, so just my message to our neo-reactionary viewers.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, I know you guys will. I mean, Nick just called us communists at the end of the video we just did with him, and you guys know we're leftists. No matter how we try to whatever. That's what it is to you guys. The important thing, all I'm trying to say is read Marx.
Yeah.
Because your guy understands how fundamentally important Marx's analysis of capitalism is to understanding capitalism. And anybody who refuses to read Marx because Marx, evil, Marx, Satan, you're missing something that is just so fundamental to understanding the world. Yeah, exactly. One day we're going to read some of that.
Yeah, dude. Shout out Richard Wurmbrand, Marx and Satan. It's basically who was it? Jordan Peterson went on that whole thing. Oh, Marxism is basically Satanism. It's all in here.
Like, Bud, he beat you to that one a long time ago.
Yeah. So shout out all our NRX homies. I'm woke. Deal with it, you fucking snowflake. Facts don't care about your feelings. And we'll get back to it. So
Point is, don't isolate parts of the economy and simply focus on those parts and think that whatever you find just tells you the whole story. No, you're not focusing on the whole.
Right.
So you gotta zoom out. And yes, I think what Bataille does here, he zooms out even past what Marx did with his, his cybernetic analysis. I know it's funny. Also his dialectical analysis,
Yep.
which is also geared towards the whole.
Yep.
Hegel would made that very clear of capitalism.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's just you got to broaden it out. That this whole thing, whether it's what we call economics, or whether it's culture, or whether it's religion, or whether it's art, or whether it's war and politics, these are various ways humans have of expending excess energy, or these are like pressure release valves for the accursed share.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This method is legitimate, and science never proceeds differently. However, economic science does not give results of the same order as physics studying first a precise phenomenon, then all studyable phenomena as a coordinated whole. Economic phenomena are not easy to isolate, and their general coordination is not easy to establish. So it is possible to raise this question concerning them. Shouldn't productive activity as a whole be considered in terms of the modifications it receives from its surroundings or brings about in its surroundings? In other words, isn't there a need to study the system of human production and consumption within a much larger framework?
I just say so. David Harvey, I heard him once say that he used to give his students this little thought experiment when they would start taking his class on Marxist Capital, and it goes a little something like this. All right, I want you guys. Here's your first homework assignment. I want you to pick a commodity that's very common that you can get at your local grocery store. Say a box of Rice Krispies. Now, I want you to start to try to figure out how many human beings and how much of their productive activity actually went in to you being able to just walk in and buy a box of Rice Krispies. And Harvey's point is that, well, if you really start crunching the numbers, millions of human beings went into the production of this box of Rice Krispies, right? And so then the Bataille question would be like, okay, so the number of human laborers that had something to do in some way, shape, or form with the production of the box of Rice Krispies. And obviously, I mean, you could say the whole of humanity did if you want to do 6 degrees of separation type shit. But let's just say relatively had some direct influence or causal impact on the production process of the Rice Krispies. Okay, say it's 10 million people. Okay, what type of energy expenditure went into all that? Like the Bataille question would be like, okay, so what energetics was at work in the play of all that? And it just starts to become mind-boggling, right? So,
well, it's in the past, I often have joked about people who drink wine and don't think about where things come from. It's the same thing. It's the mindset of where does electricity comes from? Where does electricity come from? It comes from the outlet. You plug the plug in, and that's where it comes from. It's that. I mean that's what the commodity fetish is. That's what the commodity fetish does. It covers up the human history of every commodity object. But Bataille taking it a step further, he's doing this thing where no, in your box of cornflakes, not only is there all the human labor power, all the objectified labor tied up in the machines that make up the assembly line that manufacture your cornflakes and package and ship it, and all the trucks, the trucks as objectified labor, not to mention the human living labor. There's also all the solar energy that went into the plants that were harvested,
raw materials
for and at every level of metabolism or digestion or abstraction or whatever, there's this kind of compounding ebullient explosive type of like not fractal. What's the word? Exponential. Like there's this exponential compounding of the expenditure of energy or the consumption of energy and how it all goes down. So Bataille ultimately everything goes back to the sun, solar energy. And there's this complex system of compounding like tiers of energy consumption, metabolism and reproduction and blah 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 this and that. But your simple box of cornflakes isn't just a box of cornflakes. It has a rich history of its own. And the commodity fetish covers up the human history of that object. But the restricted economy covers up the embodied material history of your commodity object. So we have a human history. We also have a material history.
Isn't it interesting on both of those notes that like in the most hyper specialized economy that the world has ever known, in which because of that, as a result of that, we think most solipsistically than ever before in history, is also the most hyper interconnected economy at the same time. Isn't that just funny?
Well, that's, I mean, it's because the capital is this machine that manages us like we're like cattle, and it manages us by way of the superego to enjoy, consume, and be the object itself. So we're on this long trail of objectification into the sublime commodity object. And that view forecloses the universe itself. Like that, it blocks off the human history of your commodities. It blocks off the material history of your commodities. Well, if you block off the human history of the world and the material history of the world, what are you left with? Pure simulation. So it's no surprise that that's the world we live in today. It is a very powerful, I think, theoretical point to point that out and say, isn't it interesting that in the most hyper-connected, technologically advanced civilization, it's also the most difficult to see ourselves as interconnected and hyper-connected. It's important to point that out. I think it's also important to say it's by design, and not to say design to kind of impute.
Yeah, it calls our attention to something that's like, like it's like that for a reason. It's paradoxical for a reason.
Yeah. For a reason.
So I think just a bit of clarification of what the main point in this paragraph is would help. I take it that the point is something like this.
I'm listening, but my boss called, so I'm like,
okay.
I'm still listening.
Gotcha.
Capital beckons.
Get it fucking right, guys. The method of isolating phenomena for the sake of science and knowledge is quite legitimate. So abstraction for the sake of inquiry is a good thing. It achieves something. We need that. But economics is different from the natural sciences. To truly study the economic phenomenon, we need a general framework. You need to zoom out.
Yep. Well, and that's, I mean, the move into modernity is the world where, I mean, we talk about it a lot, but talking about quality for quantity or quantity for quality, moving from thisness to thatness in a world of pure thisness, you do view the whole, you do view things as part of a holistic, so it's part of something bigger than themselves. But once you move over to the world of thatness, where everything is a definite quantity, things have necessarily been severed from whatever larger framework they belong to be held up and inspected and scrutinized as pure objects in themselves, as commodities to be exchanged on the market or this and that. That is the history of modernity. And yeah, I muted you, by the way, Sean, so you got to unmute.
My bad. Sorry.
I would just add, when you're studying a physical object, you zoom in. You do this. So in Heideggerian terms, the word for this is de-world, which is you kind of do decontextualize and you isolate and you focus on the thing by itself as much as you can. And that works for isolating organisms, right? It doesn't work for isolating processes.
Right.
And so cybernetics always has to make you zoom out. So whether it's a cybernetic positive feedback loop like diabetes, like where do you get like, okay, if you want to, I've got nickeled and dimed here by Barbara Ehrenreich. Okay, if you want to study the physical properties of this book, you zoom in, you weigh it, you get the dimensions of it, all of this kind of stuff by just focusing on this. Fine. Okay, cool.
That doesn't
But
tell you.
diabetes isn't an object you hold in your hand. You have to zoom out and get an idea of process. This causes this, and there's an exchange of communication here or data, however you want to talk about it. And you have to get tapped into this process that you can't have some sort of direct empirical experience of. And so it doesn't matter if it's a positive feedback loop or like diabetes, or a negative feedback loop like what your air conditioning unit is doing. Cybernetics or systems theory requires a different thought approach.
Yeah.
And it's more abstract than concrete empirical observation allows for. And concrete empirical observation, when it does what it does with its proper domain, it's great. But you can't bring that into thinking general economy.
In the sciences, such problems ordinarily have an academic character. But economic activity is so far-reaching that no one will be surprised if a first question is followed by other, less abstract ones. In overall industrial development, are there not social conflicts and planetary wars? In the global activity of men, in short, are there not causes and effects that will appear only provided that the general data of the economy are studied? Will we be able to make ourselves the masters of such a dangerous activity, and one that we could not abandon in any case, without having grasped its general consequences? Should we not, given the constant development of economic forces, pose the general problems that are linked to the movement of energy on the globe? These questions allow one to glimpse both the theoretical meaning and the practical importance of the principles they introduce.
So the point is, for him, the perspective, the zoomed out general framework of his approach to economy, the general economy, enables us to understand. He doesn't use the term cybernetic, but I'm going to these cybernetic processes at play on the planet, that if we don't have the right amount of zoomed outness, we're not going to take into account. And because of that, we won't have the proper context, almost the context of all contexts, in order to understand what is happening on the surface of this planet.
Right.
And I mean, what's going on in the universe. I mean, he's not a traditional metaphysician. He doesn't talk like or write like a metaphysician the way that Leibniz does, or the way Spinoza does. And nevertheless, there's a kind of metaphysics going on here. I don't think that's
the tiger in space, dude. Like, yeah.
Yes.
Magical space tigers. I'll take a...
So because of that, metaphysics always is the context of all context for philosophy.
Yeah.
Now, some people could argue that if you're doing real, like Levinas, for example, say, no, actually the ethical is more fundamental than the ontological. Fair point. But of course, ethics for him has a key tie to metaphysics.
That's the thing.
Yeah, that's okay. But
don't you think that's like a fundamental division in philosophy, is which is primary? I almost think that's like such a fundamental division between those who think
metaphysics,
those who think that ethics is primary, and those who think that metaphysics or ontology is.
Yeah,
I feel like that. I feel like that cuts really deep.
I just think that most of them throughout the history of philosophy think metaphysics or ontology, because here I'm going to use them interchangeably.
Yeah.
Here they think that's primary to ethics. Levinas makes the most interesting case for the opposite side of that, the inversion that I've ever seen. I don't think anybody's done a better job of it than him, but it's certainly a minority report.
Well, I think ethics is primary for Plato. I would argue that that's principle for Plato. So I think it goes
I would
way
just say
back.
that it's a little bit because it's going to be rooted in the good, but there's a metaphysics.
Well,
of
they're
dude.
inseparable for Plato. They're inseparable, you know. And so like Santayana argues that basically Plato's just a moralist because for Santayana, for example, they are separable, and Plato thinks that they're not. And so someone who thinks they're separable is going to look at Plato and be like, "You're just moralizing about the universe. That's all you're doing."
It's probably a lot of especially modern philosophers are going to do this split between metaphysics / ontology and ethics, and they're going to say ontology is primary, and that's because I think even on the Germans and the French, even though they probably wouldn't give them credit, Hume's is-ought distinction has its way of trickling down to all modern philosophy, and the idea is like, something is the case, but it doesn't mean it ought to be the case, and that seems to make oughts dependent on ises.
So Samuel Longcar, a big Platonist who's teaching the Plato Parsha course now, is
Becoming Human Project. Shout out.
Yeah, yes. What's up, Samuel?
Yeah, he explicitly rejects Hume's is-ought distinction. He explicitly thinks that oughts do imply, or ises do imply oughts. So if you the example that I've heard him use is that like if there are this isn't the exact example, but I'm like just describing reality. If there are 3 riders approaching, then you ought to say that there are 3 riders approaching.
Yeah.
So the isness of there's 3 of them implies the ought. So
I know
somebody could say, but the ought is just based on our being part of a human symbolic order. Is the ought there?
Well, I think that's
outside.
Where does that difference even emerge? Is someone might respond like, why is that even different from other things in the universe? The symbolic. That's just another thing in the universe. I'm not saying that's what Samuel would say, but I'm just saying.
I don't know. I would say
I don't think it is, but
I think we spent some time on the is-ought with separation and orthogonality, dealing with intelligence and mintelligence. And no, I do think is an ought. I think it's an artificial separation. But I also think the symbolic is a real separation, is a real distinction. So and again, not to say that Samuel would make that claim either, that it's an artificial distinction, but no, I think I think ethics is the bee's knees, everybody. But I also don't like Plato. So
weird thing with the symbolic, just at its purest, it is a set of lifeless virtual relations that are not based in matter.
Right.
They don't have atoms. The symbolic order is not comprised of atoms or energy. It's this dead, lifeless virtual structure. This is why Slavoj and them talk about the mortification of the signifier. Like once you're in this thing, you're caught up in this strange dead grid that is not made of anything atomic or chemical, or it's bizarre. But that's also where its power lies in a way. So, yeah, but we're getting away from Bataille.
Yeah, too far afield.
Let's
too far
circle
afield.
back around. And
I have shit to say about that, but we can move on. It's fine.
Sure. No, I mean,
it's okay. It's really okay. We can. I do want to focus on Bataille. So
I would just say somebody could make the case. Well, there is no symbolic without a certain type of being who's based in the energy of the universe, etc. Yeah. But the strange thing that I can come back with and say, if you study feral children, they have human brains and physical energy running through them, but unless they're baptized into this virtual grid that's dead, their physical human brain can't even develop to maturity.
Yeah.
And so, but okay.
But in a very real sense, their physical human brain is supposed to develop with language. In a very real sense, that's part of how the human brain is basically set up. At this point.
If you think, I don't know, if you think human is dependent on the form, or is human this kind of contingent thing that kind of comes out of being this cybernetic organism? Again, shout out Andy Clark, or is it Andy Briggs?
I think it's Andy Clark.
Andy Clark, Natural Born Cyborgs. To say no, the human is a process. So like, yeah, feral children.
That's why Reza calls it inhuman.
Yeah, feral children
Mm-hmm.
are not to be callous, not to try to be sensational or anything like that. But feral children are not what I think of when I use the word human. Now, we should still care for them, and they are still
They're
valid,
Homo sapiens,
and
though.
they have moral weight and bearing and this and that. But human is this fucky word that means so many things and also nothing at the same time. But I think it is to say that it's a process and to say that it's what we belong to. Anyway,
Bataille.
Ranging far afield. Although I love it, I fucking love it. Getting back to Bataille. So that final paragraph of the first little section, it's again just saying science does this. Science can hold up and inspect a physical object or a theoretical object, a notion, a concept. You can inspect it, you can interrogate it, you can stretch it on the rack to know all of its qualities or its properties rather. But when you're thinking about something such as the economy, the general economy, you have to zoom out because it's an ongoing process. It's not something that it's not a finite object you can hold in your hand and investigate. It's an ongoing process.
Before we move on, I just want to go back and highlight the name of this first subsection, right? The dependence of the economy on the circulation of energy on the earth.
Right.
Now, here by economy, he means our capital, well, we'll say human, but the economy as we humans like to refer to it as, like the economy we have in mind when we talk about economics.
Yep.
The dependence of what we call economics and the economical economy on the circulation of energy on the earth. Here's the point. Of course, he's not using the Kantian language, but what he is just saying is the circulation of energy on the earth is the transcendental condition of what we call economics. So we have to understand the foundation of our economic activity if we are to understand that economic activity. So in a sense, it's the medium is the message thing. The message, so to speak, is our concept of economy, but the medium through which that is made possible is the circulation of flows of energy on the surface of the planet.
Yeah.
Which could be the flows of energy that produce raw material for us to act on in our limited human economic activity.
Yeah. The next section is the necessity of losing the excess energy that cannot be used for a system's growth. At first sight, it is easy to recognize in the economy, in the production and use of wealth, a particular aspect of terrestrial activity regarded as a cosmic phenomenon. A movement is produced on the surface of the globe that results from the circulation of energy at this point in the universe. The economic activity of men appropriates this movement, making use of the resulting possibilities for certain ends. But this movement has a pattern and laws with which, as a rule, those who use them and depend on them are unacquainted. Thus, the question arises, is the general determination of energy circulating in the biosphere altered by man's activity? Or rather, isn't the latter's intention vitiated by a determination of which it is ignorant, which it overlooks and cannot change? And that's kind of recapitulating kind of what you just said. All man's, in quotes, economic activity is dependent on and part of and carried away with raw material forces. We depend on matter Um, and there's something bigger going on. It's not just, you chop a tree down and that's an isolated incident. Like that tree grew from a seed and it was nourished by minerals and sunlight and water, and it was there for however many years. Then you chop the tree down and then you transport it to a little workshop and build a fucking rocking chair out of it and all that stuff. But like, we're always already part of something bigger than ourselves.
I would just add that it's also important here. He seems to be saying in so many words, also, we don't control this general economy. It's hard enough for us to get a hold of our own human economy or capital economy. But we certainly aren't going to control the flows of energy that essentially have their source in the sun. And so we can never fully control the economy because we'll never be able to control the cosmos. Here we can say that the accursed share and the cosmic influences on the earth are the Lacanian real of our human economy, which is our symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you want to add to that, Sean?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
All right. Without waiting, I will give an inescapable answer. Man's disregard for the material basis of his life still causes him to err in a serious way. Humanity exploits given material resources, but by restricting them as it does to a resolution of the immediate difficulties it encounters, a resolution which it has hastily had to define as an ideal. It assigns to the forces it employs an end which they cannot have. Beyond our immediate ends, man's activity, in fact, pursues the useless and infinite fulfillment of the universe.
I know you like that quote, Nance.
Oh, yeah.
The way I think about that idea usually is like, I think we're pretentious towards infinity. I like that phrase.
So, I mean, look, the basic point of what he just said is humanity thinks it can control and restrict the flows of energy on the surface of the earth, but excess energies are beyond our control. They exceed our goals and our purposes.
Yeah.
Which means
Mm-hmm.
they become a problem for us. We got to get rid of them, and getting rid of them can be a real pain in the ass. It can also be a site of jouissance.
Mm-hmm.
It can also be a site of social inherent transgression.
Or it can be
Festivals.
Don't,
it could be a site of
Isn't it-
cohesion, and it can be like
Right.
a restorative thing. But
Exactly. A
it
site of
must be expended somehow.
Isn't he getting at that?
Social bonds are typically forged on the basis of the consumption of an excess.
Yep.
This is why, you and your friends, there's whether it's just a little friend group, but you're going to have your Saturday nights where you order a bunch of people pizza, order a bunch of people. If you're older, you could maybe do that too if you're into it.
Yeah.
But
It was a
order a bunch of pizza and you eat your candy and you stay up late, and it's fun, it's childhood, but it's based around certain excesses that you don't usually get throughout the regular part of the week, and yet those are where your close friendships are forged in early childhood, your teenage years. And sadly, because you don't have these types of experiences when you're older, it's harder to forge these symbolic bonds. It's harder to find any kind of way that doesn't seem awkward or forced
Yeah.
to engage in acts of excessive expenditure when you're older with new people.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem with making friends when you're older.
I think it's also like I don't know, every time my sister comes into town, she travels a lot. She makes a decent salary and she's got a good lifestyle. Shout out, Bo. But every time she comes into town, we have plans to do stuff. But rather than really doing anything, every time she comes around, we kind of lay around and do nothing. And you would think like, oh, that's wasteful. Like she's visiting, you're not taking advantage of her being in town. You're not running around and doing a bunch of stuff. But it's like, no, this is how we choose to expend this excess that we have. You know, she has the time and money to be able to come in town and visit, and so for that scheduled time, it's an excess, and we spend it together doing nothing, laying around. Maybe we'll play board games. Maybe we'll sit in the backyard and throw rocks at cactuses and shit like that. Like it's waste. We are choosing to waste it in our sovereign way, and it brings us closer. It strengthens our relationship.
Well, it's also transgressive in a certain sense because there's a certain way that capitalism is always telling us, always be doing something that's
better do
efficient
something,
and
brother.
functional and for a purpose. And
you better pay for that $12 boba tea drink and go downtown and buy a bunch of tchotchkes and fucking random useless bullshit you don't need, like an Instagram.
We need wasting a lot of the time by this. And honestly, the thing is, somebody cares about you if wasting time with you is a great source of meaning, because nothing is more valuable. And I mean, from capital's perspective and from our perspective, nothing's more valuable than our time. And that's this one weird thing we definitely have in common with capital.
Yep.
And so because of that, if somebody just is willing to go bullshit with you all day and just be in your company, you don't achieve anything, you're not trying to produce anything, you're not trying. No, it's this key indicator. It's a symbolic exchange. It's a symbol of the meaningfulness of the relationship, because you waste the most precious thing you can waste.
Yep.
It's time.
Yeah, you never encounter meaning. You never create meaning by pursuing meaning, by trying to be productive of meaning.
Exactly.
Ever. You only encounter it when you are allowing the energy of the universe to work through you to waste itself. That's what he's saying in the last sentence. Beyond our immediate ends, man's activity, in fact, pursues the useless and infinite fulfillment of the universe. We are ends through which energy is expressed, And I think when we are being that, then we discover meaning, like so retroactively.
I think
I just want to say this is where you see the influence on Baudrillard.
Yeah.
I just want to give a tip to Baudrillard.
Oh, dude, Baudrillard's Bataille's all over Baudrillard. But no, I think on that point, subjectivity, Lacan enters the conversation on just that alone. And while it's true that, like, at the base, at the material base of the human, it is this creature that can only act in accordance with this cosmic law. And like, I do take it to be like on the level or in the register of cosmic laws, the way energy works and the way this metabolic production works, libidinal materialism, raw matter, the intelligence in raw matter, all this stuff. I do think that that's the way matter works. And then enter the negative subject, enter the Lacanian subject, and we complicate that relation. So symbolic exchange in Baudrillard is part of it, but there's also, it comes down to us being, not identical with our symbolic identity, not identical with our material identity as well. Like, that complicates the notion, and talking about sovereignty and stuff like that. And that's why you can't just stop reading at Bataille and think you have a good idea of the way subjectivity works. Like, you have to continue going on. But Bataille,
what's the okay? So like Lacanians tend to, when they get more ontological, they tend to say like there's something like it's tend to imply that humanity is like this wrinkle or something in the universe. But is that inconsistent with Bataille? Like, what do you? I don't know what I mean. No, like, is it breaking with Bataille, or is it?
No, I think we break the cosmos. I think the human is the thing that breaks this relation, and we're free to recreate it on our own terms. I think that's what subjectivity does for us.
See, I think that's where the ontological Lacanianism really loses me. Where I'm like, I don't think that we can break it. We can't step outside of these these laws are us and we are them.
Well, here's the thing, though. Here's why.
Hmm.
Because our forms of excessive enjoyment now are geared towards a phantom negative object. And that is not the case with any other entity that we
Right.
know of. Not with chemical compounds, not with dogs, not with rocks. Like our forms of libidinal expenditure really are rooted around this nothing that we think if we get it, it will make us completely happy, but it only exists as an object insofar as we do not have it.
Yeah.
And so there's two ways we are oriented towards negativity in a way that no other being that we know of is. One is through desire and one is through drive, both of which have everything to do with excess, though. But here's the thing, it's excess oriented around negativity. And so in my book, this is something I'm trying to clarify. Superego is so oppressive because it's excess oriented around plenitude. And that's why it's so oppressive for us, because our default setting is to be organized around negativity. Now, I'll just say, desire is organized around the lost, impossible object, objet petit a, insofar as it's searching for this virtual surplus of jouissance, which unconsciously we take to be the lost chunk or fragment of our very being. That if we could just get this lost chunk of ourselves, we would be whole and satisfied and no longer lacking and desiring in the ways that we are. But the thing is, with desire, it's chasing an object that it cannot get. This thing does not, it only exists as a phantom lost limb. It was never there to begin with. Yet our very being is structured around this feeling or sense that we've lost a chunk, the core chunk of ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay, so desire is always pursuing that. And yet, right, here's the problem. Our actual source of enjoyment or jouissance is in the drives. And what drive does is drive is always operating in such a way to self-sabotage our pursuits of what we desire. And so we get enjoyment from not getting what we want. And this is this weird clusterfuck inversion that makes us different than all other organisms. All other organisms are geared around the pleasure principle, as far as we know. They have certain sensations, they satisfy those sensations, they eat, they drink, they have sex, but they don't enjoy excessive self-destruction the way that we do.
Yeah. Except
They
for animals
strike a
that
natural-
are. Yeah, and the only animals that do that are animals that are very proximate to us in a certain way. Like we
Like
see
dolphins.
some
chimpanzees,
chimpanzees a little bit.
and we see Labradors because they've been like sort of inducted into our world. We see Labradors, they get fat as fuck. They overeat like crazy.
But do we see that when they're not in our world?
No,
Right.
we don't.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I
so,
think
look, the closest you get to this shit with jouissance and, you know, all this is chimpanzee, which they are the closest to us. But sorry, I mean, the dimensions of the and it's funny to talk, the rich dimensions of self-destruction that human beings have, sorry, like nothing even is in the ballpark. Not even chimps when it comes to this kind of self-undermining. Chimps usually don't undermine themselves. They certainly are tapped into the theft of enjoyment. They have a very strict sense of justice and fairness, and if they feel like you've taken something from them, they will take your face. But they don't seem to undermine themselves. They just have a very strong sense of the theft of enjoyment. But we totally undermine ourselves. And so that is just this layer of why Lacanians and Zizekians always want to stress that we're this glitch in nature, because nature and all of the basic organisms that we've observed tend to work according to the pleasure principle. They are seeking an equilibrium within their environment. We're the ones who want a disequilibrium in our environment, and we will go out of our way to unconsciously make disequilibrium part of our world.
I would
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Nance. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I would even go, I think, a bit further And I would say, I don't think it's wrong to posit maybe subjectivity is the metacognition or this process gaining some type of reflexivity in much the same way that Nick Land talks about techonomics developing its own reflexivity, and having to become this metacognitive machine that can outstrip and outpace us all in this and that in the positive feedback loop. I think the negative subject, I think it's fair to characterize it as these natural processes developing their own reflexivity and metacognition, and therefore that becomes a moment of break with like the thing is no longer self-identical. The thing because the way that excess is handled in Bataille is death drive. That's probably a bigger statement than I want to go on and unpack right now, but it's true, and I'll unpack it in the future maybe.
Yeah. So
I gotta say, but I want to say one thing about that. Sean, you go next, but I want to return to that.
Okay, so that's the reflexivity thing is what is interesting, because what I was thinking this whole time is that Lacan and Todd McGowan and Zizek, they're still substance monists. Like they're still not positing that there's another substance or anything. It has to be this rub within the same substance that they're not dualists, is what I'm saying. It's still the same substance, it's the same universe that Bataille is working with.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes it's almost like, I'm not saying that they're saying this, but sometimes it's almost like they're saying that there's like this other substance, and it's like, but they're not saying that. They can't be saying that, But
we operate on the predicated other, like that. Like that negation is precisely
we almost posit another substance, like we have to.
Yeah.
Even though it's pretentious. It doesn't exist, but we posit it. And it's just how we work.
Yeah. By nature of our own reflexivity, we have no choice but to posit this other. And that other is a lack, it is a contradiction, it is a negation, it is all these things. So but Mikey.
I would just say, look, in erotism and sexuality, which is something we could read some of down the road.
Absolutely.
I've read it in a long time, and so that's why I want to proceed with caution with what I'm about to say, because to really feel confident in this, I would need to revisit that book. But look, here at least, if I limit,
right,
if I zoom in and I don't do the general thing when it comes to reading Bataille, if I zoom into just here, my initial thing that I would say is the whole thing about excess for him is that there is a buildup in excess, but he always wants to emphasize these mechanisms we have as pressure release valves.
Yes.
To expend the excess. And to me, it's almost like he's locked into early Freud, who only has this idea of pleasure principle, which is pleasure principle. There's buildup of an excess of excitations in the body, and the pleasure principle kicks in, and pleasure is that moment of release of the excess, whether it's orgasm or shitting or whatever. The moment where you get that is this moment of pleasure. But what the later Freud and especially Lacan comes to realize is that, wait, all organisms do that. Dogs do that. Dolphins do that. Birds do that. What we do is make the buildup of excitation an end in itself. And that is where this side of self-destruction comes into play. And so if you want to talk about how we're a glitch, but keep it in purely Bataillean terms, it's because we're the ones who turn the buildup and sustain the preserving the excess as long as we can, the end. Whereas typically with the pleasure principle, the end is the moment of relief where you expend the excess and go back to equilibrium.
So the only difference between us and like the rest of the animal kingdom is that other animals know that their shit is shit. We're confused because we think that our waste is like fucking God. We think that our waste is the highest possible achievement.
In human terms, we turn drama, the drama of our relationships with other people, into an end in itself. that is just the constant source of all of the excessive excitation in our lives. And what we don't realize is that the drama that we all are so quick to say, I'm done with, I'm over it, I'm not ever. No, you're not done with it. And give it a week, and yet we forget this shit. But this is where the human all too human is at in this whole general economy, is that we we don't want to let the excess go. That's the form of self-destructive enjoyment. Whereas animals, every other biological entity is just very happy to let the excess go.
So what you're saying is gooners are the most human of us all. Going back to the conversation we had with Daniel Tutt, shout out, and Grady, the homie. We briefly touched on it at the end. We were joking about gooner, hyper gooner communism or whatever. There's a specter haunting the internet, and it's goonerism. But no, that of course that's hyperbole. But no, it is that logic of we are able to enjoy the thing in its absence, as opposed to enjoying the thing in its culmination or presence, or actualization or whatever. Yeah, I think that's fair, and I do think talking about on erotism later in this book, and particularly in Erotism and Death, or whatever. Yeah, but I think Bataille is getting at death drive, but it's yes, it is different, and drive and desire. I don't think, but I just don't think Bataille has a good accounting of that, and that's why you can't stop at Bataille. You must go further into Lacan.
Well, and the problem is, if you just get death drive from Freud, you're going to probably get stuck on this thing that Land did in his own way too. That death drive is almost the ultimate pleasure principle. It's the pressure release valve of all excitation, period.
Right.
Which is to say, it's a return to an inanimate state. This is where I'm just a Lacanian, and I go, that's not what death drive is oriented towards. It's this space of undead life, of zombie-like enjoyment that just persists eternally. And it's not a return to inanimate being. It is a movement towards the zombie.
Well, Bataille does get into that, particularly with erotism, when he's talking about reproduction and rights around death. Like, why do we revere death? And also, why do we develop weird sexual partialisms and fetishes and shit like that? And it's because it's in reproduction and death when we recognize we continue on in a zombified form. And so like that is, I think, Bataille positing drive, just in different words. He's using different words, but he really is talking about death as zombified, like continuation of life. But that, again, that's getting far afield from what we're what we're trying to do tonight. But it is all.
This is why we decided to go slow with this, because this stuff, the three of us are going to have lots to riff off of here. So I don't want to rush through it. I want to riff off this stuff.
Beyond our immediate ends, man's activity is in fact pursues the useless and infinite fulfillment of the universe. Of course.
And Lance, do you want to just keep going, or are you good? You want to switch out? What you want to do?
Oh yeah, you want to grab a couple? Go for it.
Here, just finish the section. I'll pick up the next one. How about that? Is that good? All right. Sorry.
Of course, the error that results from so complete a disregard does not just concern man's claim to lucidity. It is not easy to realize one's own ends if one must, in trying to do so, carry out a movement that surpasses them. No doubt these ends and this movement may not be entirely irreconcilable, but if these two terms are to be reconciled, we must cease to ignore one of them. Otherwise, our works quickly turn to catastrophe.
So in other words, if we want to reconcile economy and nature, then we must stop ignoring the relation between them.
Right. And we must stop being solipsistic about it all. We must stop thinking we're the end-all be-all. I will begin with a basic fact. The living organism in a situation determined by the play of energy on the surface of the globe, ordinarily receives more energy than is necessary for maintaining life. The excess energy, or wealth, can be used for the growth of a system or an organism. If the system can no longer grow, or if the excess cannot be completely absorbed in its growth, it must necessarily be lost without profit. Without profit. It must be spent, willingly or not, gloriously or catastrophically.
There is an excess energy that will make itself felt in one way, shape, or another, and we can use it, in certain ways to build society. But if we can't reckon with it, it can also destroy us.
And if we continually disavow it, and we live in a world of plenitude and on-demand satisfaction, then it's just going to be a buildup and a buildup and a buildup. So if we're chasing pure excess, which is, shout out Todd McGowan, also the logic of capital, accumulate, enjoy, we are going to be much like the Baron von Harkonnen in David Lynch's classic Dune. We're going to be big, fat, floating balls of blubber, and we're just going to have a fire hose stuck up our butthole, and it's going to be turned on full blast until we explode, like the guy in Seven who died from gluttony.
And there's an idea in Bataille in that paragraph of sublimation, I think, because in order to not have the energy spent catastrophically, it has to be spent gloriously. It has to be spent differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we keep up the catastrophic bullshit, then it's because we're not pouring the energy into things that are glorious in that sense.
Right.
So I mean, look,
these sponges.
There is always more energy than a given system needs or can make use of. This accursed share must be spent or destroyed without profit. Now that's where the accursed share has a certain anti-capitalistic dimension to it. Obviously, capital is geared towards excess because the formula of capital itself, MCM prime, is all about getting an excess of value or profit from the exchange. But this is an excess that is not necessarily geared towards profit. In fact, it seems more geared towards destruction, perhaps. And so, yeah, it's important to think this in relation to capital, but realize it's also not identical to it, because capital tends, at least the story it wants to tell about itself, is that it's always trying to find a use value or a function for all things, to put all things to use, and to maximize everything to its greatest ability. And so this idea of just pure waste for the sake of waste, or excess that can't be converted into profit, that's anathema to capital. But I would just like to add, Slavoj Žižek is very good, various points in his work, of pointing out how capital itself produces an accursed share of waste.
Yeah.
And so like the airplane graveyard, like what is this sprawling field of old aircrafts that nobody will ever use, that is just sitting there in a desert? It's the Mojave Desert, right?
That's in Arizona, dude. I've been there.
Just rotting away.
Yeah. Dude, those are our monuments. That's like it's the airplane graveyard, the Pacific trash ocean. Like those are our fucking monuments, Those are our pyramids of our age. Like,
and they tell the truth. They tell the truth about our society in a way.
Right.
We couldn't, or we chose not to deal with the waste that was, or this buildup that was accumulating. And so it became garbage that we disavow. But in reality, that is the culmination of modernity. That is the truth of our civilization. The great Pacific garbage patch.
Yeah, and we have to be like, that's the explicit ideology, is that everything goes into profit, nothing is ever wasted, and then but we all know the underside. Everyone knows the underside. We just walk around pretending otherwise.
For an example of waste, that violates the very principle of use value while being a use value. It's all of the homes that are new and waiting to have people live in them, but and there's people who are homeless who can't afford homes, but no, this wall of exchange value, of money value, prevents the people who need homes from having the homes that were made to serve as use values for humans. And so all of these new homes just sit there unused, and it's a great big fucking waste.
Yep.
Dude, nobody lives in the Shard. Basically nobody.
No
the
way.
Shard is London's tallest skyscraper, or at least residential skyscraper. It might be
Yeah.
the tallest, and no one fucking lives in it. Like, technically people inhabit it sometimes, but every single floor is this giant suite, and it's just an investment property.
Fuck, dude. Oh no, I fucking froze and dropped.
It's not, they don't need it. And it's this monument to just sheer like uselessness.
That's fucking
The Shard.
crazy.
Yeah.
What do you say? Should we do one more section and then
Yeah.
kind of wrap it up?
Yeah.
Cool, I can read a section. All right. The poverty of organisms or limited systems and the excess wealth of living nature. Minds accustomed to seeing the development of productive forces as the ideal end of activity refuse to recognize that energy which constitutes wealth must ultimately be spent lavishly without return, and that a series of profitable operations has absolutely no other effect than the squandering of profits. To affirm that it is necessary to dissipate a substantial portion of energy produced, sending it up in smoke, is to go up against the judgments that form the basis of a rational economy. We know cases where wealth has had to be destroyed, coffee thrown into the sea, but these scandals cannot reasonably be offered as examples to follow. They are the acknowledgement of an impotence, and no one could find them in the image and the essence of wealth. Indeed, involuntary destruction, such as the disposal of coffee overboard, has in every case the meaning of failure. It is experienced as a misfortune. In no way can it be presented as desirable. And yet it is the type of operation without which there is no solution. When one considers the totality of productive wealth on the surface of the globe, it is evident that the products of this wealth can be employed for productive ends only insofar as the living organism that is economic mankind can increase its equipment. This is not entirely, neither always nor indefinitely possible. A surplus must be dissipated through the deficit operations. The final dissipation cannot fail to carry out the movement that animates terrestrial energy.
We will never expend the accursed share itself. You can get rid of certain excess energy, but this constant flood of excess energy is not something we will ever get rid of. It is going to be a natural and social constant, and so we better get used to it and learn to better navigate it and strategize about it. And yeah, but I mean, I think the core thing here is Bataille's theory of the general economy and the accursed share go against the presuppositions of rational and political economy. They didn't understand how waste has to be baked in to the production of wealth, and that you cannot have unlimited wealth amplification. There has to be moments where the wealth is squandered. It's just a necessary component of this process.
And isn't that how capitalism is inhuman, and not in the way that Reza means? I mean, like, it's inhuman in the way that's like monstrous, where it's like it just, the interests of capital are not, they don't align with the way the human actually is aligned and the way the human actually is.
Well, piling up homes that nobody gets to live in is a great example of there's an expenditure here, and yet it's completely wasteful. Nobody profits, not even the capitalist system. And yet this is how capital chooses to do it. It comes at the expense of the human. Because if a king was truly in charge, he could very easily say, fuck the exchange value. I don't give a shit about the banks. You're going to take the L and people are going to get the houses. End of discussion. But capital
Like,
is king.
It's like Muammar Gaddafi. I mean, that's why we had to murk Gaddafi, because he gave all his homies houses. Not even all his homies, but like everyone in Libya. He gave them houses. He gave them fucking university educations. Now, he did some other wacky shit too, but Gaddafi was like, I'm in charge and you're getting a house. And we couldn't abide it.
He's kind of like Oprah.
And for all the fucked up shit that old pre-modern symbolic orders did, and it's so easy to like go back and look at them as though they're like barbaric or whatever, but like for all that, like they actually could figure some shit out that we cannot seem to figure out, like jubilees, like every 7 years the debts just disappear, like shit like that,
dude.
Like the fact that like they could correct these things. They could figure some of these things out, and we're just like clueless. We're just like, that's not possible. It's not possible.
And Bataille, the Aztecs, human sacrifice. I think even Bataille was kind of operating on some shaky information translated by the Spanish conquistadors who wanted to barbarize the fucking Aztecs. But even Bataille was like, he saw what was going on with these human sacrifices. Like, it wasn't this barbaric activity. Like it was actually a constructive pro-social process where the sacrificee was honored, and they were brought into the palace, and they were treated like a king for a day or a week or however long it was. And at that moment, they actually metamorphose from a prisoner of war or from some itinerant member of society or whatever. They metamorphose into this jubilant, sacred person who's then being given away to the surplus, given away to the sun god, like in order to give thanks for the bounty, and the stability of life under the Aztec fucking regime or whatever.
Well, we'll probably get into some of that shit later, but like, I feel like the Aztecs are as horrible as Bataille thinks they are. I think they are, but because all of these other communities around them got with the Spaniards to fuck up the Aztecs. So
maybe they were just haters, dude. They hate us because they ain't us.
But the weird thing about the Spaniards that's always funny to me is that they're like, oh my God, they're ripping people's hearts out, and it's so fucking hideous and horrible. Dude, your church burned people alive. Like, just as that was the routine fucking punishment for heresy, was you burn people at the stake, So it's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
And I'll say it. The Catholic Church continues their honored tradition of child, maybe we won't say sacrifice, but we'll say profanation and ruining the lives of children the world over by continuing to allow clergy members to fuck them, fuck the children, or rape the children, and then hide it, and then let's play shuffleboard with the priests and move them to different parishes and different dioceses and shit like that. Yeah, the Catholic Church is fucking horrible. It's just to say, like, yeah, the Aztecs might have done some shit that would suck. Like, I'm happy that I live in 2026 America. But yeah, I don't think it's right to characterize them as barbaric, because our world is, I think, far more barbaric. And it's probably by virtue of just the fact that it's hyper connected, and like everything has been intensified. The good things have been intensified. I like central air conditioning. I like the internet. I like skateboarding, but I also like our poverty is horrendous. The horrible things that happen.
Yeah. And the thing with the things that made the Aztecs tick have not gone away.
Right.
That's the thing. Is like they're still with us. Like, we're still are the Aztecs.
Yeah.
We still are. And the Spaniards are also the Aztecs. That's the point. Everyone is the Aztecs. It hasn't gone away. All of these processes, all of these problems, all of this excess of energy, and this like struggling to burn it off and find out what to do with it, that's all still at play.
Yeah.
From Tibet to To
human
Mexico.
sacrifice is still a thing. It's just not bloody the way. I'm sorry.
Which makes
If
it
you're
worse,
forced
I
to live a
think.
life, say what?
I think that makes it worse because it's disavowed.
Well, it's invisible. Like that's why Slavoj always goes. You know, the nice slave master is worse than the mean one.
Yeah.
Because the nice one makes it seem like nothing bad is going on here. Um, the thing with our situation is, sorry, if somebody's been stuck in having to work shitty jobs since they were a teenager, never got to develop their mind, never got to pursue their passion, never got to refine their intelligence and their ability to think or tap into their creativity because they were stuck in this economic grind at the lowest level. And because they either didn't have more than a high school education or maybe they didn't have the right social skills, they just can't get a break. They can't move up the ladder. Well, fuck them, I guess.
Yep.
Live a life of stultification, burnout, hopelessness, and to me, that's a human sacrifice.
Yep. Absolutely.
I'll keep going. The contrary usually appears for the reason that the economy is never considered in general. The human mind reduces operations, in science as in life, to an entity based on typical particular systems, organisms, or enterprises. Economic activity, considered as a whole, is conceived in terms of particular operations with limited ends. The mind generalizes by composing the aggregate of these operations. Economic science merely generalizes the isolated situation. It restricts its object to operations carried out with a view to a limited end, that of economic man. It does not take into consideration a play of energy that no particular end limits, the play of living matter in general, involved in the movement of light of which it is the result. On the surface of the globe, for living matter in general, energy is always in excess. The question is always posed in terms of extravagance. The choice is limited to how the wealth is to be squandered. It is the particular living being, or to limited populations of living beings, that the problem of necessity presents itself. But man is not just the separate being that contends with the living world and with other men for his share of resources. The general movement of exudation, of waste, of living matter impels him, and he cannot stop it. Moreover, being at the summit, his sovereignty in the world identifies him with this movement. It destines him, in a privileged way, to that glorious operation, to useless consumption. If he denies this, as he is constantly urged to do by the consciousness of a necessity, of an indigence inherent in separate beings, which are constantly short of resources, which are nothing but eternally needy individuals. His denial does not alter the global movement of energy in the least. The latter cannot accumulate limitlessly in the productive forces. Eventually, like a river into the sea, it is bound to escape us and be lost to us.
Bum, bum, bum.
Okay, so I think the beginning here, the point he's getting at, and I'm going to use a little Heideggerian jargon, but uh, rational economy de-world, or we could say decontextualizes the economy. In isolating it, it conceals its very embeddedness in nature. I think we've already kind of hit that point before, but worth stating again. And then I think the main point as he goes on, something like economies falsify the economy. It leads us to think that our limited goals are in harmony with nature or are somehow existing outside of it. Economics fails to see the deep inconsistency it has with nature.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? What do you guys think the takeaways from this paragraph are?
Well, you can see how like if nature is doing things through man that it are not what man intends, human beings, of course, like you can see how this would lead someone to like a post-humanist or an anti-humanist sort of
Hmm.
place. That's not where I want to go, but you could see how someone would go there. Like I think I like to think that like Freud is a kind of like a humanist, even though he's the one that said the ego is not master in his own house. But in a sense, like to me, the fact that our ends are not what we think they are, I don't think that the subject just dissolves when that happens. You know what I mean? I think the subject is still there, even though our ends are not what are not identical like to nature's ends, and the ends that nature has, even as it's working through us, is not, it's not what we set out to achieve.
Yeah, I think it's necessary to understand that we are always already a part of something bigger than ourselves. We are these creatures that depend on this ecstasy. We are not, no man is an island. There's no such thing as a modern individual. The modern individual is ideology that keeps us locked in this restricted economy where we can view the choices we make as individual, isolated, de-worlded economic propositions that we say, I want X, Y, and Z. I want a house. I want a fancy car. I want enough food for my kids. I want this. I want that. Like I want all these things, and view them as separate. Like it's necessary to understand that, hey man, you live on a planet with limits, both finite limits in the sense of like there's a limit to how much you can grow, but also limits in this Bataille sense, like there is only so much that the circuit can bear, and when the circuit is overloaded, it will short circuit in some way. It will cause some type of explosion. So we have to understand that we're already caught up in the world. We're already caught up in humanity, and it's not as simple as most economics would have you think.
Yeah. And I think like if you found subjectivity on de-worldedness, you found subjectivity on that, of course the subject is going to fucking vanish into thin air.
Yeah.
The second it's pushed back on it, because it has nothing to fall into. It falls into the void. There's nothing. It falls into an unworld. There's no world for it to fall into. So it has no foundation. So of course subjectivity appears to just poof the second it's pushed back on. Because it's defined as this like solipsistic personhood.
Yeah.
That's really comes out of the economy. The specific, as opposed to general, what is it called? The
restricted.
The restricted, there we go. The restricted economy instead of the general economy. And Bataille is saying, let's go back to the general economy. Maybe let's found the subject on the general rather than the restricted,
Yeah.
Look, I think it's just worth reading this again, right? This is where he's setting up the difference between general economy, which is his contribution, and restricted economy, or what we call economy.
Yeah.
Economy. Economic economy. It sounds funny, but so for him, the human mind reduces operations in science as in life to an entity based on typical particular systems, organisms, or enterprises. Again, it isolates, it views things in isolation from one another. It decontextualizes. It doesn't think in referential or relational terms. This is our problem, is humans tend to be, by default, maybe it's the Western philosophical tradition's fault. I don't think so. I think this is something humans have long done across all various cultures and regions of the planet. We tend to think in terms of substance. We think a thing is this thing in front of our eyes. We have trouble thinking structure. We have trouble thinking cybernetics. We have trouble thinking processes and systems. And that's what he's saying the problem with economics is. Even when it thinks it's getting at the whole, it's not really getting at the whole. And basically, so he says, The human mind reduces operations in science, as in life, to an entity based on typical particular systems, organisms, or enterprises. Basically, things that we can isolate and view in abstraction from other things. Economic activity, this is our human capitalistic type of what we think of as economics. Economic activity, considered as a whole, is conceived in terms of particular operations with limited ends. We're trying certain operations, certain business strategies are trying to achieve certain ends. And this cuts across all different modes of production, not just the capitalist one, but feudal economies, ancient economies, etc. The mind generalizes by composing the aggregate of these operations. So it wants to think all the various types of economic operations, economic in the economical sense of what we take it to be. And then it kind of it aggregates them and thinks, oh, I've thought the whole, because it's thinking the various types of business transactions, investment strategies, blah, blah, blah. Economic science merely generalizes the isolated situation. So it generalizes the isolated situation. It takes our limited sense of economy and generalizes it and acts like that's what all there is going on. It restricts, there's the restricted economy coming in. It restricts its object to operations carried out with a view to a limited end. I'm trying to make money. I'm trying to buy a pair of shoes. I'm trying to invest in my children's future. I'm trying to have retirement, blah, blah, blah. That of economic man. It does not take into consideration a play of energy that no particular end limits. Now, this is general economy, the Bataille economy kicking in. The play of living matter in general. This is what Nick Land thinks of as raw matter.
Yep.
This is the intensities on the body without organs for D&G. And so the play of living matter in general involved in the movement of light, of which it is the result. Again, we're talking physical energy here, not just libidinal energy. On the surface of the globe, for living matter in general, energy is always in excess. The question is always posed in terms of extravagance. The choice is limited to how the wealth is to be squandered. So, if you're dealing with what we think of as human economics, there's always shortages, there's always recessions, there's always these moments of lack, of not being able to supply a demand, these kind of things, right? You know, I'm drawing a blank. Network of distribution, the supply chain. Supply chain can run into problems. We saw this with COVID. So you can say, oh, there's lacks, there's deficiencies. Yeah, in our restricted economy. But the point is to understand there's always excess in the general economy, and the problem's going to be in coping with that excess and what to do with it. So lack is not a problem when it comes to the general economy. And so, yeah, and look, I mean, guys, I know we kind of are approaching what we thought would be the end, but there's really only one section left. It's a couple pages long, but you think we should just knock out this section?
Let's
Be
do
done
it.
with it. Let's do it.
But do you see in that? Do we see in that section how like the way that the restricted economy wants to generalize itself?
Yeah.
It wants to usurp. It wants to be the world. And in doing that, we don't get to have a world in like the Heideggerian sense. You know,
This is where you want capital itself wants to be nature.
Yeah.
Or it wants us to think that it's nature or natural or is just a part of nature, right?
I think its logic is almost like, no, I'm the natural order of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's asserting itself as nature. Yeah. Should we? Yeah.
I would just say to anybody who isn't Nick Land, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
All right.
Yeah, let's do this last one.
War considered as a catastrophic expenditure of excess energy. Incomprehension does not change the final outcome in the slightest. We can ignore or forget the fact that the ground we live on is little other than a field of multiple destructions. Our ignorance only has this incontestable effect. It causes us to undergo what we could bring about in our own way if we understood. It deprives us of the choice of an exudation that might suit us. Above all, it consigns men and their works to catastrophic destructions. For if we do not have the force to destroy the surplus energy ourselves, it cannot be used, and like an unbroken animal that cannot be trained, it is this energy that destroys us. It is we who pay the price of the inevitable explosion. Basically, doubling down on all that's come before, and saying we cause ourselves problems because we fail to recognize this underlying logic or this underlying fundamental operation of the metabolic activity of the way the Earth as a metasystem manages energy, and how all our activity depends upon the Earth and its activity. And so if we naturalize this logic of just accumulate and just store up all your wealth and just keep it and just enjoy the plenitude and blah, 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 then we're going to find ourselves. It'll be like we took the hose and put a kink in it. But the material of the hose itself is not strong enough to hold back the inevitable explosion of water that'll come up from this buildup of excess energy, excess pressure.
That's why he's concerned. He's saying that the lack of knowledge, the lack of awareness, the ignorance of the accursed share is a giant problem for humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and isn't he saying, like, through understanding that there is a better way? He's saying that there is something we can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can form a logistics of the accursed share.
Yeah. Yeah.
But how many people in power, how many politicians, how many economists actually are sitting there going, look, there's excessive energy that's always going to be circulating, especially with humans, which we're focused on. Of course, I mean, animals deal with it, but this is where I almost want to limit to more of us and go, yeah, dolphins are fine. They figured it out. Okay. They don't need our help. They've got it handled. We, on the other hand, don't. And so here's the thing, whether it's the type of gang violence we really saw in the 80s and 90s, Bloods and Crips in the inner cities, or it's the white, lonely guys who go and get a gun and do what they do. This is a problem of excessive energy being built up and not having proper outlets for it. And so this energy, the pressure release valve, and the energies, let's make them concrete. They're fucking frustrations. There's anger. There's our emotions are forms of energy in this Bataille economy. And if you don't allow human beings who are having their psyches, their libidinal economies overloaded with negative, and not in this Hegelian, I mean, bad emotions, bad energies, bad intensities, and that's all they've got, they're going to explode. And it'll be gang violence, or it'll be the mass shooter, or these terrible things that we want to avoid. So if you're thinking in terms, in battalion terms, and if you were somebody in a position of power to do things, you would go, we have to restructure the situation here with these particular groups, because something's going on in the structure of their lives that is producing these violent forms of release of the energy. And there is a way to do a kind of social logistics of, or even sounds funny, central planning of the accursed share.
No, our reaction to it normally is, oh no. That's what we do. Oh no.
Yeah,
like whenever some shit happens, oh no.
It's fucked up.
Well, I mean, so just to separate us from the animals, and I don't know to even do that. We compound again at every transfer of energy, like from the sun to the plant, from the plant to the animal, from the animal to the man, from the man to the machine. Like there's an exponential like payoff in the energy. Animals, dolphins and dogs and octopuses and all these other things, they don't create technologies to store up this energy. We do. Like that's what man does. We change the world and we think it's all deworlded and we think it's all this one particular activity. And so we create a machine, and much like labor gets objectified in the commodity object, this energy gets objectified exponentially and stored in our machines. So dogs and dolphins and other cows and shit like that, they don't have these catastrophic explosions of energy because they reach a natural limit and they succumb to the natural limit. Like man is the creature that we surpass natural limits, and we're constantly trying to outstrip these limits, and we do so by technological activity. So it's because we've overcome necessity in a sense by compounding labor power in our machines, and we've managed to store up energy and all this. Like there's just this exponentially more built up energy that needs to be expressed. Now we could see, like I think a way to manage this social surplus, things like building convivial institutions, like that would be an excellent way, like social programs, social welfare programs. Like let's take some of these trillions of dollars that we've accumulated and produced and all that with our national gross domestic product or whatever, and let's pour it into social housing, and let's pour it into social arts programs and social education and all the woke shit that everyone's afraid of. Like let's waste our wealth in this way, and let's not put any restrictions on it. Let's just do it for the sake of it. And if you build it, they will come, but like not even for that. And you see it with the Tibetans, like all their economic activities supported this class of just useless, economically useless people. And that's why they achieved this metastable system that has been more stable than the West over the course of modernity. The West is nothing if not war, like the history of war. And that's what happens. Like when you don't have a way, or you look at the Aztecs and they had human sacrifice, or you look at the indigenous tribes in the PNW, the Pacific Northwest, they had potlatch. Like they had these different strategies for managing this social surplus, and they achieved a type of metastability. But here at the heart of empire, we just disavow the accursed share, and we act like it's not a problem. And so we have gang violence, and we have poverty, and we have all this horrible, miserable shit that goes on because we're not it's like we need to pop the fucking pimple, dude, but we're not. We're pretending the pimple doesn't exist. I was gonna,
or like, weren't we like putting a couple people in charge of being able to express, like Elon Musk is expressing into space, right? He's shooting shit up into space, but like, and the rest of us have to vicariously. This is, I think, why we see these billionaires very uncritically. Like people call Elon Musk brilliant, and I'm like, I'm sorry, no, he's not, dude. Like people throw this around all the time, and I'm like, the guys designing his rockets are brilliant, but like he's cunning. That's not the same thing as brilliant. Like sure, he has attributes. The motherfucker is instrumentally intelligent and cunning.
Yeah.
Right. But moving money around, I don't care how.
Also lucky.
Yeah, and also lucky, but I don't care how quick or good you are at moving money around. You're still just moving fucking money around, and that's all investors are doing. They're not fucking gods. They're not titans. They're not that interesting. You know, they just move money around effectively.
Well, and
that's it.
Rather than being like a management of a social surplus, it becomes the activity of an individual. Like he very much thinks he is not wasting. Like he very much thinks he's investing. He very much thinks there will be a return on his investment. And that's why that can't serve as this expression of the accursed share for us, because we're not bought in, because we are legally barred from having any stake in that unless you're an investor and you fucking own shares in the stock.
What I'm trying to say is, doesn't it exactly operate that way, where this is like we're watching Elon Musk shoot rockets into space, and that is like that is where we invest our
It's the necessary expression of it, but we're barred from taking ownership in it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But like libidinally, that is how we are. Like
Or
we're thinking,
fantasmatically,
living vicariously through these guys. You know,
or we're
which is fantasy investment.
right,
Yeah.
or we're
yeah, exactly.
we're angry about it because we don't recognize any part of ourselves in it, and we're pissed off. I'm pissed. I'm like, God damn it! Why can't we build a better fucking public park? Why can't we build a better public school system? Why can't we have public fucking healthcare? Like all these things, like these would be better social expenditures.
Let's just do the pyramids, but like bigger. Let's just do in Arizona. It's a great spot to do it. Let's just do bigger pyramids. Let's just do it
down,
again.
dude. I'm super down.
10 times the fucking size.
Yeah.
So, okay, tell me if you think this gets to the heart of his point here. Excess energy is going to escape our control, whether we know it or not. But if we know, then we can try to find ways to release it that are better than others, ways that don't destroy us in the process.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so.
The battalion point is politicians and economists better become theorists of the accursed share, or they're just doing shots in the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, or they're clueless. Exactly. Shots in the dark is right. They're just clueless. They don't understand the subject. They don't understand how the subject interacts with other subjects. They don't understand how the subjectivity is operational in the economy. They don't understand that interaction at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they think it comes down to essential qualities and things like, oh, IQ, and oh, look at this meritorious fucking enterprising young lad. He'll make a great businessman. And oh, look at those kids standing around sagging their pants, smoking fucking blunts. They're necessarily bad.
So for those of us who know that type of person, and they not only do we know them, they often have been close friends of ours. Those type of knuckleheads, given different situations, they wouldn't be knuckleheads. There's very few of them.
Yep.
That have that other, no, I like this. Those are the ones you know.
Yeah.
And if you've been around the different types of people, because there's various types of knuckleheads, but no matter what type, whether it's the punk or the gangster or whoever you've met, most of them would get out if they could.
Yep.
And that is why, in the case of the gangster, most movies are about them trying to get out. There's very few that
pull me back in.
Exactly. But very few of them are just like, I fucking like this shit. That is the exception.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what Bataille helps us see is that the knucklehead is Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is the knucklehead. You know, like that dude standing on the street corner doing whatever is Elon Musk. They're both the same. They're in that they still have, like, just in the way that the Aztecs and the Tibetans are the same. You know.
Mm-hmm.
These excesses of life force, which locally block the poorest economies, are in fact the most dangerous factors of ruination. Hence, relieving the blockage was always, if only in the darkest region of consciousness, the object of a feverish pursuit. Ancient societies found relief in festivals. Some erected admirable monuments that had no useful purpose. We use the excess to multiply services that make life smoother, and we are led to reabsorb part of it by increasing leisure time. But these diversions have always been inadequate. Their existence in excess, nevertheless, in certain respects, has perpetually doomed multitudes of human beings and great quantities of useful goods to the destruction of wars. In our time, the relative importance of armed conflicts has even increased. It has taken on the disastrous proportions of which we are aware.
When we squander our excess on a full automation and UBI instead of war.
Right.
Dude, those you got to watch the 60 Minutes episode. I was at my grandparents' house, so we were watching 60 Minutes, but of the Boston Dynamics, like factory robots. This shit's getting fucking wild, dude. This shit's getting. I'm like, bring it on. Take my fucking job. Do it.
Just give us UBI.
Yeah.
And look,
do your worst, motherfucker.
We've heard all the arguments. We get it. It's not perfect. There's going to be problems with UBI. Yep. Give me the UBI.
Yep. They will be less problematic than the problems we're dealing with currently. So bring on those problems.
Here's the question. If the problem, I have two different problems, okay, or sets of problems. One set of problems is problems I'm facing, but I have to have a job.
Mhm.
And the other set of problems is a set of problems I have to face, but I don't have a job. I'll take that set of problems. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think in this paragraph,
the only argument against this that I've heard is our buddy Swoletariat, who says, well, if you're not a wage laborer, then you don't have the capacity to organize the working class
Dude.
for a proletarian and
that's the frightening part,
but-
honestly. It is.
no,
Like I agree. Like I do. Like
it's just I don't. Nance and I are of the mind that's just not going to happen.
I think we're
You're not
beyond
gonna
that.
do it.
We're beyond that.
I think and I think you're right. I think that we are beyond that. I think the reason why it is frightening to a lot of people, one of the reasons is that like that is the historical lever that the nobodies had to put pressure on capital, but like we cannot be stuck thinking about the way it was because they have engineered the systems of production to make that lever shitty as fuck. That lever breaks off in your hand when you pull it these days.
Yep.
Or
What
you
if the
can't
new-
even reach it.
What if the new lever of pressure is being a consumer? Your
Maybe.
system doesn't work unless we buy the shit you make, and the robots that you've automated the economy with aren't going to consume.
Maybe. Do we have to organize consumption? This is going to go into a whole different fucking thing. But like, do we have to organize consumption then?
I just think we need to reorient ideas of history and ideas of subjectivity, ideas of citizenship, and all that. I don't think. I don't know. What does organizing even mean? I don't know, but it will involve radical reorientation. I can tell you that.
I mean, even like rent strikes is a form of organizing consumption in a way. Like it's a thing you're paying for that you're organizing around.
Yeah.
Which I think is like becoming even in like socialist organizing circles or whatever is becoming increasingly obvious to organizers that is starting to matter in a way that it didn't before. Or it's more of the emphasis is more on that in a lot of cases than labor. You know?
Look, cards on the table. I don't have any faith in production and the organization of production doing it. God bless the people who do. Okay, we disagree. I obviously see things differently than you do. I'm going with the other option.
Yeah, I hear it. I really do. I mean, I look at like you said at a talk, I forget which one, the working class has no solidarity. And I don't even know if you might have been exaggerating. That might have been hyperbole, but like, even it doesn't have to be because like I look around and I'm like, where is the fucking solidarity? Where is it?
It wasn't hyperbole.
There you go. Yeah. And I'm like, and I no one's willing to say that. No one wants to say it except for you. And I'm like, it's true though. Look around.
Well,
like,
except
it's not the way the world works.
People who aren't in the working class want to talk about working class
but it's
solidarity.
Not just me.
And
the three of us, our experience as wage laborers, all three of us testify to that.
Yeah, dude, I went to hang out with picketers, literally on the strike line, and the reaction I got from some of them was super welcoming, and from some of them it was literally like, "Why are you here, dude?"
Mm-hmm.
Like from the people on strike, were looking at me like, "Why are you here?" Like I was crazy to be there.
They really want to be. They want a niche form of blue check mark influencership, and you're just a working class guy. You're not actually you're not a worker, because what they mean by it is this highly niche thing.
Well, I think it
has all kinds of ideological attachments to it beyond just being a wage laborer.
Well, in that case, it was even deeper than that. It was like I just think our sense of like, I don't know, just that we're here to help each other out. Like, I don't think that fucking exists in the world we live in for the most part.
Straight up.
It's not there. At all. Like, because their attitude was like, oh, I'm getting paid for this from the strike fund. So why would you need to be there to help me? And I'm like, read a book. This is how it works. Like, we're supposed to come together as a community to help you, and you don't understand that fucking concept. You know what I mean? Like, but you have to read a book to find that out. It doesn't. That's not how you don't get that from the world. You know,
it's almost like this whole thing is hyper fragmented.
Almost.
So, okay, back to Bataille.
Shit.
Yeah. So in this paragraph,
I love that he says services that make life smoother also make life more nihilistic and meaningless. Just,
yeah.
You know,
yeah.
It's the
recent history.
It's that bureaucratic shit for the sake of just what Mark Pollux and Roberto Alonso Trio call drag. Like, capital and business are doing this thing, and humans always have to find a way to find a place in it. And so they'll find some stupid fucking reason to justify their job within the system so they can keep their managerial position. But they're not really effectively doing anything that helps in anything. It's a bullshit job, like Graeber talks about. And, but it's in the name of, I'm doing a service, or I'm, but wait, no, you just found a way to con your way into a paycheck. And I can't be mad at you for it.
Yeah.
But it's a fucking lifeless existence. And let's not fucking act like this is truly servicing humanity in any meaningful way.
Services. I think in this paragraph, it's worth mentioning, Bataille was very concerned with how and why fascism took off, and how and why total war and total mobilization kind of became this thing. And so he's not just talking about like, oh, all this crazy shit. Like, he's talking expressly about the world wars and total war, total mobilization, international fascism, and all this stuff. So while this is always in operation, and while this goes back into history and prehistory, Bataille is grappling with modernity, and he's horrified by what he saw, the culmination of modernity as World War II. So
that's because we can unleash war on a scale that we never could before.
Right.
And so, I mean, while societies have found ways throughout history to exude the accursed share, war has been our main mechanism for the release or destruction of the accursed share. Developments in technological advancement have made the possibility of war far greater and far more impactful than ever before.
Yep. Recent history is the result of the soaring growth of industrial activity. At first, this prolific movement restrained martial activity by absorbing the main part of the excess. The development of modern industry yielded the period of relative peace from 1815 to 1914. Developing in this way, increasing the resources, the productive forces made possible in the same period, the rapid demographic expansion of the advanced countries. This is the fleshly aspect of the bony proliferation of the factories. But in the long run, the growth that the technical changes made possible became difficult to sustain. It became productive of an increased surplus itself. The First World War broke out before its limits were really reached, even locally. The Second did not itself signify that the system could not develop further, either extensively or in any case intensively. But it weighed the possibilities of a halt in development and ceased to enjoy the opportunities of a growth that nothing opposed. It is sometimes denied that the industrial plethora was at the origin of these recent wars, particularly the first. Yet, it was this plethora that both wars exuded. Its size was what gave them their extraordinary intensity. Consequently, the general principle of an excess of energy to be expended, considered beyond the too narrow scope of the economy, as the effect of a movement that surpasses it, tragically illuminates a set of facts. Moreover, it takes on a significance that no one can deny. We can express the hope of avoiding a war that already threatens. But in order to do so, we must divert the surplus production either into the rational extension of a difficult industrial growth or into unproductive works that will dissipate an energy that cannot be accumulated in any case. This raises numerous problems which are exhaustingly complex. One can be skeptical of arriving easily at the practical solutions they demand, but the interest they hold is unquestionable.
But in order, I'm just rereading a sentence in that paragraph. But in the rational extension of a difficult industrial growth or into unproductive works that will dissipate the energy that cannot be accumulated in any case. And he says the sentence before that, we can express the hope of avoiding war that is already threatens. Nothing has changed.
Yeah.
About that. Nothing has changed. That is still waste is the only way to avoid a war that threatens today. That's still the case.
Well, I think it's interesting looking at like AI, chips, investment, manufacturing, like, is it a bubble? Is it not a bubble? Blah, 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 this and that. Kind of doesn't matter if it's a bubble or not because it still has real effects. But I think it's true that there are people burning a lot of money. And I think the logic that kind of demands they burn that money is this in operation. Now, it's also true that we just invaded and kidnapped the leader of Venezuela. We're threatening Colombia and Mexico and Cuba. The United States is just fucking bursting. It's just yanking at the fucking chains, and it's like stupidly trying to explode some kind of world war. But I think international business is doing this management. They're just wasting resources on investing in chip manufactories and all this energy and all this waste and all this consumption. Not because they want to achieve this type of metastability, but I think because they have no other choice, because according to the logic of capital, they have no other options. Like they just have to do this. I think they're backed into a corner, and I think we are all, I don't know, we're fucked. Like things are bad and getting worse. Yeah, things are like this motherfucking shit's about to get out of control, dude.
So, this connection he makes between modern industrialization and the two world wars and it is very important. But I think, to me, the key statement here is towards the end of that paragraph where he says, we can express the hope of avoiding a war that already threatens. Okay, we feel like World War III threatens us. Or maybe it's World War IV, because Baudrillard said the Cold War was the Third World War. So if we go with Baudrillard saying, okay, whatever, the World War III. We can express the hope of avoiding a war that already threatens. Okay, how can we avoid this war? All right. How can we prevent World War III? But in order to do so, we must divert the surplus production. We must change how capital takes the surplus and reinvest it in the economy for the sake of more capitalist accumulation. He's saying we have to get past capital. So, but in order to do so, we must divert the surplus production either into the rational extension of a difficult industrial growth. That would be some sort of capitalism that we're locked into, capitalist realism that we're in, or into unproductive works that will dissipate an energy that cannot be accumulated in any case. That is this other option of saying, no, we're just going to start taking the surplus and expending it in all kinds of various experimental ways and see what works. And I think I side with the second option.
Yeah. Fund
Let's see what we get.
fund public works, fund arts
UBI.
programs. Build the pyramids part 2. Anything.
So yeah, it is that's kind of his option. So he is trying to say, I think in a roundabout way, he's saying this link between industrialization. I mean, the warning he gives, I just think he sees it as, if we stay locked into what we've already had with capitalistic industrialization, this is not really, it's an either or that's not really an either or.
Yeah.
So yeah, his point, I think he is being normative, but in an indirect way. He's saying he wants the second option.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and we can just think about it as like we've got to put the energy somewhere. It's like the same thing at the level of the individual, where like you get pent up. Everybody knows what that feels like in one way or another, and you have to find a way to put the energy somewhere. It's the same thing at the level of society, at the level of the earth, of all the humans on earth. We have to collectively put the energy somewhere.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't go in a constructive way, I'm doing air quotes, then it's going to come out in a destructive way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's what he's going to get at. This next paragraph is maybe the most important one in the whole chapter we just read.
I will simply state, without waiting further, that the extension of economic growth itself requires the overturning of economic principles, the overturning of the ethics that grounds them. Changing from the perspectives of restrictive economy to those of general economy actually accomplishes a Copernican transformation, a reversal of thinking and of ethics. If a part of wealth, subject to a rough estimate, is doomed to destruction, or at least to unproductive use without any possible profit, it is logical, even inescapable, to surrender commodities without return. Henceforth, leaving aside pure and simple dissipation, analogous to the construction of the pyramids, the possibility of pursuing growth is itself subordinated to giving. The industrial development of the entire world demands of Americans that they lucidly grasp the necessity for an economy such as theirs of having a margin of profitless operations. An immense industrial network cannot be managed in the same way that one changes a tire. It expresses a circuit of cosmic energy on which it depends, which it cannot limit, and whose laws it cannot ignore without consequences. Woe to those who, to the very end, insist on regulating the movement that exceeds them with the narrow mind of the mechanic who changes a tire.
Just
Fire that he singles out America.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, it's relevant now.
Yeah.
Yep. Nothing's changed about that.
So look, to summarize, here's his core point. We must realize that economic growth is contradictory to political economy. We must give and waste without profit in order to profit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Don't you think that like we have to discover that thing that the societies that built the pyramids and also did blood sacrifices to the fucking moon or whatever, that like we have to learn something from them without going back to that, you know? Like it's what we want in the future is the best of both worlds and not the worst of both worlds. What we might end up is with the worst of both worlds. What we might end up is fucking like blood sacrifice and fucking shitty jobs or something. I don't know. But like
or capitalist monarchy, like
yeah.
good old Yarvin wants.
Sacrifices to Yarvin. Blood sacrifices to Curtis Yarvin.
The God Emperor Mencius Moldbug himself. No.
Oh God.
I think I would word that differently. Just because I don't know. Must we learn from those who've come before us? In a sense, yes, because to refuse to or to fail to do so is, I think, a disavowal of your very nature. Again, like human history has a long tail, and we make up a part of that, and we're just we're at the we're like the nucleus in the comet, and the long tail is still part of us, and we can't wave that away, and we can't say no, that doesn't belong to us. So to act like we are, I don't know, islands in our own right, and we are me, like it is this solipsism of capital, of the commodity object, of this sublime object that doesn't actually exist. Like it's pretending like we are individuals, separate. We make up our own world. It's de-worlding us entirely. But I don't know. I wouldn't say, should we learn from the ancients or whatever? I mean, of course, we're reading Bataille. Bataille is looking at these guys, but I think like the principle that he's getting at is just that there is this metabolism that governs what is possible on the surface of the earth, and we are a part of that.
He's showing how it works in every society. Right.
We live on the surface of the earth, and he's accounting for how it itself that has been accounted historically and all that. So I think it's more along the lines of like actually forcing modernity to deliver on the promise that it made us, that we could actually become liberated and emancipated and freed up to pursue our own pursuits, and like not necessarily be beholden to this cosmic force. Because like I do think like we are that, like we are this cosmic force culminated in a being that it has metacognition and that is reflexive and that could maybe not can currently, but could pursue its own ends. That is the promise of modernity.
But it's also out of joint with the universe.
Well, that's the thing. Like we are like the universe produced us. And what are we doing? Like we're still being cucked by this logic. We're still living in a world that tries to disavow the underlying logic of itself. And because we can't take up our own responsibility to manage these cosmic flows of energy and metabolism and necessity, we live in a world where child sacrifice is a very real thing. We live in a world where billions of us are fucking slaves, where people live in squalor and hunger and they're mistreated and we're just miserable, while we have a small handful of a lot of South Africans shooting fucking rockets off into space and trying to hack our minds with fucking Facebook and Palantir and like, no, I want to do that, and I wouldn't do that. I don't know what the fuck I would do, but I want to be free, and we're not free. None of us are free, and to be the old anarchist, we're not free until we're all free. I think that's also what Bataille is saying. Like we're all part of this. Bataille is very much saying, hey guys, we're all in the same boat, and the fucking steam pipes that run the steam engine are overloading with pressure, and we have to find a release valve and let some of that steam pressure out, because if not, the fucking boat's going to explode and we're going to drown in the Atlantic Ocean.
Well, I'm glad that Elon Musk is shooting rockets off into space. Like at least then that is part of the pressure valve. At least some of that shit is happening.
You're right.
And I think like shooting rockets off into space, that is in a way that's a perfect symbol of like what we need to be doing. Like I think
Star Trek, your favorite thing, Nance, a great example of like life affirming expenditure.
That's it. We should be shooting rockets off into space. It just shouldn't be proprietary ownership, legally enforced corporation owners where one man. No, like we should all realize this, from the lowliest fucking miner in the Congo or in fucking Paraguay, or like from the lowliest motherfucker to the most fancy banker dude on Wall Street. We all play a part in the rockets that are being launched off the surface of the earth. We all do. That's what the general economy says. That's what Bataille is saying. Like this is human activity. So we should all. It belongs
to none of us, which is why it belongs to all of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
if anything, we're saying more rockets into
more
space.
More rockets. Give me all the rockets.
More of them.
Yeah, dude. I want a rocket. I want a robot body. I want a jetpack. I want a flying car.
I'm a rocket man.
But no, it is.
Sean, I just do have to say, No, go ahead, Nan. Sorry.
I just it is this logic of profit that we disavow the necessity of expenditure, and we pretend like it's business acumen to do the expenditure. Like Elon Musk gets to pretend that he's the wise entrepreneur when really no, he is following a necessary logical proposition of capital itself, but he has to disavow it. If that were out on the surface and out on the open, then we would all take part. We would all have some ownership of the rockets being launched off into space. So it's just making a parallax shift from the restricted to the general economy, I think, is a necessary part of this radical reorientation that we all have to do to develop a ubiquitous humanism, to use a word that I like it on Tuesdays, I hate it on Thursdays, but we need universal something. But anyway, I cut you off, Mike.
So just one of the famous Hegel quotes goes a little something like this. I'm paraphrasing a bit. The only thing you can learn from history is that humanity never learns from history. Okay, that's the famous quote. That's if you go to Google it, that's what it never finishes the quote. You have to go to the book itself to get the rest of the quote. So the real quote, the full quote goes something like this. The one thing you learn from history is that humanity never learns from history. And it is right to do so. Hegel's point is it is right to not learn from history. Why? That seems counterintuitive. He's saying because every new situation that a society is facing is actually a singularity. That it's not identical. It can't just, there's no copy paste way to deal with a singular social situation. Technology is always changing things. Philosophy changes things. There's innovation. And so you always have to confront a social crisis anew.
Yeah.
And he's not saying, I don't think, that you can't have some kind of but he's ultimately saying there's no answer tucked away in history on how to deal with your singular social situation.
Yeah.
And that I would agree with. And the issue, the reason I would just go, okay, do old symbolic orders have something to teach us about capital? Do we want a combination of them and capitalism? I don't know, because cards on the table. This is where I'm influenced by D&G and land. Somebody could argue against what I'm about to say, but for me, I accept it. So I'm going to be honest about it. I view old traditional symbolic orders as ways to shield humanity from capital. They were ways of preventing capitalistic economic activity from gaining a foothold in the world. About 400 years ago, our force field collapsed. These symbolic orders stopped working, and capitalistic economic activity took off for various factors that Nick Land in a condensed form talks about at the beginning of Meltdown. But to return to a traditional symbolic order in any way, shape, or form, the core would be, we need a symbolic order that can protect us from capital. No, we need some sort of symbolic order where capital isn't even a threat.
Right.
Which has, at least from the theory and the position I'm coming from, it's always been a threat to human symbolic orders. Yep. So that would be, and here's the thing, capital does do something. It spurs on technological dynamism. I'm sorry, it does. This is where I side with it, because I want more technological dynamism. Can it cross a threshold where it negates itself? Possibly. And there is a greater technological dynamism outside of capital itself. That's the hope. But
I think capital.
Well, I want to, when I say learn from I'm saying in the broadest way we need to learn. I'm saying in the way Bataille's doing.
Yeah.
Do I want the kind of return to a symbolic order, or have a new symbolic order that in which that could come out of that as fucking blood sacrifices? No.
Yeah.
Of course not. No,
Yeah.
I'm saying like I'm saying in the way that the pyramids are analogous to shooting rockets into space as
Yeah.
as an expenditure.
And
The question, there's a question that like comes to mind about that, which is like if we believe like this might be the failure of like modern romanticism, where like if what we believe is like what we're doing is pure aesthetics and that it's not a monument to the sun god, then does it have the same function anymore? You know, if we know we're not doing it to praise like fucking the sun god, then do we get the same satisfaction from doing it?
I think it could be even more effective and more pro-social if we were aware that we were doing it for the social itself.
which would be new.
Yeah. I think like
And honest.
what allowed capital, and again, it was a confluence of historical conditions, I think, but the along the human vector, I think the most powerful feature of capital, or the MC and prime, or technomics, or acceleration, or modernity, or whatever you want to call it, number, quantity, number, what allowed it to take off along the human vector is that it represents a theretofore unseen, unfathomed universal, and that's universal exchange, universal commensurability, and universal exchange. So I think if we're ever going to overcome capital, we have to develop a more powerful universal, and I think that would be some type of universal recognition of our shared stakes in the exchange, and instead of viewing us as de-worlded, disconnected, isolated nodes in the equation or factors in the equation, because with universal exchange, it allows Timmy and Jonathan to both get what they need, and they don't have to account for the needs of the other. So the only way to develop a more powerful universal than that would be to show how Timmy and Jonathan are codependent on each other in their ecstasy and their shared relation with one another.
Yeah, and I think like that you have to show people through symbols, through the symbolic. And I think that, and there have been many cultures that have found ways to take the mask off, or to show like that these are the grounds, but they're also groundless.
Yeah.
Like that is a thing that symbolic orders are capable of doing and have done. Like Zizek uses that example of like the Hopi Indians.
Yep.
Of like, I don't remember exactly how it worked, but he uses this example about the Hopi Indians and their masks specifically as a way to reveal that behind the symbolic, there's a groundlessness. So it is kind of creating a new symbolic that does have to happen, because there's no other way to guide people, but besides through symbolic signposts. But on the other side, it has to be that these are masks.
Well, that's why what Bataille has, like, in his communism, what he's calling for is a new symbolization, a new symbolic order.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just a matter of
one that knows where it's going, right?
Say what?
I said one that knows where it's going, right?
Well, it would have to be one that's faithful to some sort of truth event that, for him either comes from, I think it would have to come from politics at this point, but maybe science, maybe art, maybe love. I think love works more at a personal level, but and he's vague about it, and I think that's the right way to be. Like, I don't think no symbolic order has ever just been engineered like making a blueprint for a building. There's too many. No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So but I
my fucking internet
is saying we need a new symbolization in order to reorient ourselves in relation to the accursed share in a way that doesn't lead to global annihilation.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys, let me ask you. So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, or we blow ourselves up with global thermonuclear war. The aliens invade, the dolphins inherit the earth, and we don't have to worry about any of this shit anymore.
There we go. Sometimes, like Wittgenstein, sometimes you don't solve a problem, you undermine the problem. Well,
Yeah.
there we go. Problem undermined.
Yeah.
Question. Okay, as we conclude, if we take a page out of the Y Theory book, what up, Todd? What up, Ryan? What is the lesson? What movie should people watch to get an idea of what the Bataille accursed share is?
All right, I'm gonna answer because I'm gonna, Sean. It's incumbent on you to come up with a real answer because this is a joke answer. My joke answer is to go on Google and search for the DC Batwoman movie that was supposed to come out like 4 years ago that they actually shit canned, and they took it as a massive tax write-off because they decided that wasting all this money on production would actually be more profitable for them in the midterm because they could recoup what they lost in tax write-offs, but they spent like $100 million or 60 million, whatever, on entirely filming, producing, and getting ready to release this Batwoman movie that never was actually released, and it was a total waste. And I think that's pretty apt fucking thing talking about Bataille, the DC movie that they shit can. And they do this all the time with movies. Sean, you probably have stories about it.
I was just thinking about my serious answer. But yeah, that does happen. Which is, by the way, is Castle in the Sky, Miyazaki. That's my serious answer.
Tell us why.
Can you give us a little hint why?
Because I think that there's technology in nature, and then there's the idea of like the castle in the sky is where technology and nature found out a way to be okay with each other, you know, and like, but it came out of this utter devastation of the world, you know, because technology and capitalism could not figure out a way to hang out, to be on the same page.
Outlets for the excess.
Yeah, and I think that like, I don't know. I don't like. It's hard to say too much about Miyazaki movies because I think if you try and talk about them, it sort of cheapens them already. But I think if you sit there with what we've been talking about with Bataille in mind, and then you watch that movie, I think it'll make sense. You know.
Perfect.
Fuck yeah. And on that note, friends, we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for hanging out. I don't know when we'll reconvene, but it will be soon, and we'll keep chipping away at this text and doing other shit. So peace out, internet. Bye.
Nope.
Later.
Mellon provided an unredacted copy to select members of Congress.
What do you think about those aliens there, Winston?
On the 9th of December, 1965, residents across Ontario, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania reported a brilliant unknown object.
Oh, look at that. Kecksburg, Pennsylvania.
Before it crashed
Aliens.
near Kecksburg, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I'd seen it out of our bedroom window.
I don't know about you, man, but
This fort right here.
I'm just tired of seeing the same stuff over and over again. It's like if they wrote like the New Testament, but they were like, oh, here's another New Testament. And they just wrote the New Testament like 75 times. It would be the same thing. Fucking aliens, UFOs. Oh, let's watch some YouTube shorts, bud. Oh, cool. Nintendo.
Your clue is game. I found this cocoa bean in a corner shop. I don't know why. A date that is.
There's a track that's one of the most sampled songs of all time, but not because it has one part that.
Did you know that there are actually 2 versions of Super Mario World?
This is Neil Hamburger. I need to talk.
Whoa.
This here is the Asus Zephyrus Duo.
Cool. Television. Nice. Oh, Skyrim.
A new Red Dead Redemption 2 mystery has been...
One of my biggest social experiments over the past month has been changing my camera quality to...
Nice. That's fake though. That was not real. Oh, whoa. Put a shirt on, dude. You're naked.
Oh, look how tiny it is. Oh my goodness.
I found a holy grail of mine, a prison.
Day 1 of finding the most ridiculous thing at CES.
My favorite media.
What is it like to discover your voice as a lead singer and how different?
Whoa. This is porn. Look, dude. It's porn.
I have to sneeze.
Yo, if I could do it, then why can't you? Get up and make it.
My buddy Diego Rambo from the Philippines just sent...
Hey, happy Thursday, everyone. Alice.
It's the end of 2023. Got the Fender mix head.
This is how I set up my overhead shots for YouTube.
Blind guy on a skateboard. Fake.
Hey friends, it's Desi back with another installment of Republican Beauty Trends. Y'all have...
Ouch.
So my Pixel 10 can...
This is a new Nintendo 60.
Every time I look at you.
What the fuck? What is this?
Actually, Grant, I...
A man holds down the power button.
Niger.
If you ever wondered what it looked like inside of a three-way switch,
Do your horizontal threaded holes? This is not just a dog.
It is the best combination.
I'm just glad. I will say this. I don't even.
Want to see something cool? It's it.
Whoa. Billy Blanks.
For those reasons that I just explained.
Hey, it's the Ubu girl.
I'm not mentally capable of keeping track of what I'm saying. Maybe you should rewind it a little bit. Maybe you should rewatch it a couple times. But again, I was responsible for gathering 700,000 followers.
If I could give you an extra 8 inches, would that make a difference?
This is one of the fastest 3D printing.
This phone literally repaired itself.
Jesus. Hey, Mom.
Why do so many of us struggle with phone battery life?
When there's a smile in your heart, there's no better.
Static icons feel dead, and it's shoved.
I wish I was special.
Okay. Ralph Macchio. Yeah.
The hell are we doing with ourselves, Winston? What are we doing with our lives? Been sitting here all day. We haven't done anything. I know what I'll do. I'll call Mikey, see what he's up to. We'll read something, or talk about something, or maybe have a conversation with someone. Or maybe we'll just shoot the shit. That's what I'll do. And by the way, you can be a part of it too. If you head on over to patreon.com/thedangerousmaybe, you can check out what's going on. You can get access to some of the things that aren't currently publicly available. And just know for a fact, more is coming soon. This year, 2026, will be a year of bounty. Our good friend Nick Land recently said it was an Atlantean year. So surely that must mean it's going to be full of, wonderful stuff. So head on over to patreon.com/thedangerousmaybe. Get access to the stuff that's not currently publicly available. And have a more, reliable avenue of communication, of asking questions or sharing comments that Mikey will actually see and maybe respond to. Someone just became a paying supporter at Patreon. They've been a supporter for years of what's been going on, what Mikey's been doing and what I've been doing. And it wasn't until recently where this person became a paying subscriber, all thanks to Christian's awesome theme song. So you can, find all the cool stuff there, check it out, and be a part of whatever we're going to get up to next. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hop on a phone call, see what Mikey's doing, and I'll catch you there. Bye, folks.